Chapter 458. Beligaju did not find it difficult at all. He calmly dealt with Hellion Vivian's various thoughts. In order not to ruin the fun of chasing after his wife, he was even very cooperative. He reached out and patted Hellion Vivian's head as he replied softly, and Hellion Vivian felt that she had won completely this time. At the very least, she was very successful in pacifying him. Sitting in the carriage, she took the initiative to tell him that she had confessed to Qi Yen before. She was slightly troubled. How should I face him in the future? Don't tell me you don't know? After Bailey Jiaju finished listening to her words, he slowly asked a question in return. Hellion Vivian crossed her long legs and ate the osmanthus cake in her mouth. Know what? People from the Qi family don't seem to like women very much, Beligaju said vaguely. Hellion Vivian immediately showed an I understand expression. You mean that Qi Yen is a homosexual? It is indeed possible. I don't think he is very close to other women. He clearly has a lot of power, but he doesn't even have a servant by his side. Little Seventh Prince's teeth clenched as he ate the cake. His third brother had already started to accuse Qi Yen of being a homosexual in order to stop third sister-in-law from having any feelings for him. Wasn't this method a little too shameless? Thinking of this, the little one turned his head and glanced at his third brother faintly. Beligaju drank his tea without a change in expression, allowing Hellion Vivian to misunderstand his meaning. From a certain point of view, the royal family was right. Qi Yen did not like to get close to women. There were very few who could make him look at them differently. But the way he spoke, so, you don't have to worry about how to face him in the future. Just keep a distance and don't mention the past and make it awkward for both of you. Hellion Vivian nodded as she listened. She yawned lazily and said, if there's nothing important in the future, I won't mobilize him. I don't know how much debt I owe him in the past. Fortunately, he's gay. As long as they don't touch, there won't be any development. Beligaju let Hellion Vivian lean on his body, full of thoughts. The corner of his mouth seemed to curl up. He was simply evil to the bone. Little Seventh Prince swallowed the 3 pastries in one gulp. He puffed up his cheeks and thought, Qi Yen is really pitiful. The woman he likes thinks he's gay or something. Sigh. However, of all people, he had to provoke third sister-in-laws. Third brother's digging skills were well known throughout the country. One touch, and there would be nothing left of him. In the end, Scarlet Flame still couldn't figure out how he had lost. However, Yuan Ming, who was in the Xuanhuan space, had a pair of eyes that were filled with worry that had never appeared before. Woman, what happened just now? No matter how Little White and I called you, you didn't respond. We almost broke the contract between us. Hellion Vivian closed her eyes. Her voice was much calmer than before. It's the previous Hellion Vivian. She seems to have feelings for Scarlet Flame and wants to come back and replace me. It's a bit strange. Yuan Ming rubbed his chin and said, logically speaking, you shouldn't be considered a true possession. Possession means that when the person is still alive, your soul goes to fight for her body. However, I can feel that this body has already lost its vitality before you arrived. In other words, it's a body without a soul. Why did the previous Hellion Vivian come back? Hellion Vivian's eyes darkened. But she really wants to come back. The continuous nightmares and her reaction just now all pointed to this fact. At this time, Little White, who had been silent for a long time, spoke up. Could it be an undead? Undead? Hellion Vivian raised her eyebrows. What the hell was that? Yuan Ming also narrowed his eyes. Normal people can't become undead. Don't forget, Hellion Vivian isn't a normal person. She's the reincarnation of the Phoenix Girl. Little White's tone was cold. She has the ability of the Exorcist tribe. Yuan Ming pursed his lips into a straight line. Suddenly, he laughed evilly. That's why I don't like the Exorcist tribe. They're like cockroaches that can't be killed. Little White didn't comment. Yuan Ming's eyes darkened. Even if it's an undead, with Hellion Vivian's courage, it's impossible for her to be invaded so easily. Someone is looking for trouble. Yuan Ming. Hellion Vivian spoke up lazily. What do you think is the possibility that my incident and the incident with the school's resentment were caused by the same person? Yuan Ming laughed evilly. 70%. I think it's 90%. Wei Wei laughed. It's just a pity that that person is too smart, and there are also 4 great elders blocking in front. I also can't see through the clouds. It seems that we still need to first move the 4 great elders aside. Only then can we see that person's true self. Right now, the people on this side of the Hellion family are still not convinced by me. I need to first make some achievements. Only then can I truly take back the family property. After I've finished my own business, I'll be free to deal with him. Yuan Ming raised his eyebrows. You've decided to make a move? The other party doesn't want me to stay. Hellion Vivian used her thoughts to communicate with them while glancing at Beligaju beside her. She continued, and I have a reason to stay. Yuan Ming noticed her gaze and reminded her coldly. Be careful that you can't control your heart and soul in the end. He's worth it. These 3 words were enough to explain everything. Hellion Vivian didn't dwell on this issue for long. She tilted her head and pondered. There was only a month's time. What should she do in order to make a name for herself in such a short time? Unless she was transferred outside of the capital. In the modern era, she was in the arms industry, but she still had to deal with people in the political world. Those who were truly high-ranking officials wouldn't stay in the capital after they entered politics. Instead, they would go to other places to do business. The way of being an official, whether it was in the ancient era or the modern era, was generally the same. How about she also tried transferring outside? But she wasn't a child and she wasn't a man either. It seemed that she still had to talk to Imperial Grandfather and ask him to give her an identity that could be transferred outside of the capital. Thinking of this, she first told Beligaju about this idea. Beligaju laughed softly. Since you're transferring outside, then you definitely need a military advisor. And I originally wanted Qi Yan to go with me, but in the end, Hellion Vivian sighed. She didn't expect that at this juncture, she would lose a general. Beligaju's hand that was holding the teacup tightened. Then he leaned over and pinched her chin. You mean to say that you want to abandon this prince and leave the palace by yourself?
No.
Hellion Vivian bit her tongue and smiled very sincerely. Beligaju's eyebrows jumped. He didn't pursue the truth of the sentence. He only kissed her lips and said, You can? Chapter 459. Hire me as your military advisor. Beligaju continued in a low and magnetic voice. Hellion Vivian's eyes lit up. It would be great if His Highness could follow her. He must be more experienced than her in the bureaucracy. However, will the palace be all right without you? Hellion Vivian was worried about the unstable situation in the imperial court. Beligaju swirled the teacup in his hand. When have you seen me staying in the palace all day long? Grandfather is in charge of the capital. It will be beneficial for me to move out. Beneficial? Hellion Vivian did not know that there would be benefits for Beligaju here. Beligaju said faintly, I'm going to be the regent in the future. I need to do something to be persuasive. It's difficult to move some people's roots in the capital. It's easier to move them back from the outside. Hellion Vivian knew who Beligaju was referring to without needing to point it out. It made sense when she thought about it. The branches of the 4 influential families were too big. One move would affect the whole family. The roots in the capital were too deep. It would be better to move them back from the outside. It might be effective. Hellion Vivian's only concern was gone when she thought about it. Both of them were efficient. They went straight to see the Emperor Emeritus as soon as they returned to the palace. The Emperor Emeritus pondered for a while and said with a smile, I'm glad that both of you can think of this. Juba, you're right. But it depends on the location. The south is too far away. First of all, the bureaucracy there is too deep. You won't be able to get in. Second of all, it won't be convenient for both of you to move around if you have urgent matters. Everyone says that the poorer a place is, the easier it is to become famous. Listen to me and go to Fuping. Fuping? Hebei? It's not far from the capital. It's surrounded by mountains and has great scenery. Hellion Vivian raised her eyebrows. She was not sure if it was the place she knew. The retired emperor stroked his beard and said, That's the place. Wei Wei, Jube, don't underestimate this small Fuping county. The more remote a place is, the more landlords there are. There are many people who think that the emperor is far away and do immoral things. Being in the imperial city, this emperor has to consider everything. There are some things this emperor can't do for the common people, but this emperor can rest assured in the hands of the two of you. Some people, for the sake of their family's interests, plundered the common people's wealth. Not only did they make the common people suffer unspeakably, they deceived their superiors and deceived their subordinates, doing all kinds of things that only animals would do. This time, you two have caught a good example for this emperor. Don't worry, when the time comes, no matter how big the root system behind this emperor will make a move against them. Yes. Hellion Vivian smiled and saluted. She raised her hand and placed it on the side of her head. The retired emperor looked at her actions in confusion. He didn't understand what she meant. Then he laughed out loud. This silly girl. Hellion Vivian admired this old man more and more. He did too many things against his will, but even when he couldn't control himself, he still thought about the country and the world. Such a superior person deserved to be supported by the people. A prince raised by such an old man wouldn't be too bad. His Highness's methods were a little cruel and shameless, so he didn't seem to be friendly to the common people. However, he was a good person deep down. Hellion Vivian looked back and smiled at Beligaju. Beligaju was a little confused. After they left the palace, Hellion Vivian told him what she thought just now. Beligaju listened to her and pulled her into his arms. He didn't expect his little one to have such a strong sense of justice. Don't change the topic. Tell me first, how are you going to thank me tonight? His warm breath brushed against the back of her ear. Before Hellion Vivian could react, he had already carried her in his arms and walked into the bedroom. The whole night of torment was extremely fierce. Hellion Vivian didn't know how she had offended him. She only remembered that she had begged for mercy several times and called his name countless times. He didn't let her go until the middle of the night. He patted her back with his left hand and warned her in a low voice, "If I hear you confess to anyone in the future, I will lock you up. Do you understand?" Hellion Vivian weakly lay in his arms. Wasn't this matter already over? It seemed that she had underestimated someone's jealousy. Hellion Vivian thought about it, and a faint smile appeared on her lips. Only smiling and not saying anything? Beligaju pinched her chin. That godlike face was handsome and devilish. Looking at it closely, it made people feel that nothing in the world could compare to the smile on his lips. Hellion Vivian reached out and hugged his thin and strong waist. She raised her small face and teased, "This young master, you look so handsome when you are jealous." Jealous? Why would I be jealous? Beligaju laughed and pulled her back. It's just that what you did was wrong. You need to be educated. Hellion Vivian nodded. I need to be educated. I will only confess to you in the future. I won't care about anyone else. That's more like it. Beligaju snorted coldly. Hellion Vivian, Your Highness, does your family know that you are so arrogant? This time, when we go to Fuping, we will first get your face back. Beligaju's voice was faint and sounded very serious. It's good to have a dark complexion. Why did you have to be so fair? Hellion Vivian. Was it her fault that she was born beautiful? You only know how to attract bees and butterflies. Beligaju hugged her with one hand and put the other hand behind his head. He leisurely closed his eyes. Hellion Vivian was lying on top of him. She was already very sleepy. She would do whatever he said. As a domineering president, she should not be bothered by trifles. Woman, don't sleep yet. Yuan Ming called out to her from the fantasy space. Hellion Vivian was too lazy to move. What's wrong? I discovered something. When you are by the third prince's side, your soul is much more stable. Yuan Ming smiled with a hint of wickedness. It seems that the third prince is really unusual. Hellion Vivian yawned and said, This is the power of love. Yuan Ming, a little white. Yuan Ming was a demon. As a demon, it knew very well the reason behind this. From its point of view, Beligaju definitely had a secret that even it couldn't see through. If it was an ordinary person, it was impossible for them to stand in the middle of human and demon thoughts so beautifully without being affected by the demonic nature. Logically speaking, Beligaju should have fallen into the demonic path in an instant outside the palace today. However, it was obvious that he had controlled himself and even suppressed his ruthlessness without leaving a trace. If he hadn't noticed Beligaju's faintly glowing eyes, even he wouldn't have noticed that something was wrong with him. However, those eyes were clearly the precursor to the demonic transformation. Perhaps it would be good to leave the palace for a while. The aura of resentment here was too strong. Whether it was for Hellion Vivian or Beligaju, it would affect them. Chapter 460. The next day, Hellion Vivian and Beligaju left secretly. It was only 7 days, and they disguised their identities, so they did not attract anyone's attention. At this time, the stewards of the Hellion family gathered 3 or 4 people and went to the elder together, full of righteous indignation. If she continues to be so unreasonable, we don't need to do anything anymore. In my opinion, she is just a girl who doesn't know anything, and she still wants to interfere with our business. If she interferes and loses the benefits of the past, who is going to take the responsibility? Elder, the years of filial piety and layers of relationships have been messed up because of that girl's interference. You have to stand up and take care of it. That elder was wearing a pure white robe. It was obvious that he was already very old. His hair was all white, but his eyes were somewhat poisonous. However, this poisonous intent was concealed very well by him, so much so that he even looked like a graceful immortal. He took a sip of tea, as if he did not put Hellion Weiwei in his eyes. She's just a young and inexperienced little girl. She's just a little smarter and has some tricks up her sleeves. Why are you so anxious to see her like this? Don't forget, she does not have any achievements. After half a month, she will naturally return to her original state. The most important thing for you now is to take care of your business and earn what you can. As for the rest, she can't interfere even if she wants to. The situation in the capital is very complicated, and she is just a princess consort with no real power. She can't do anything even if she wants to, understand? The stewards responded with a yes and immediately beamed with joy. After listening to the elder's advice, they basically understood everything. She was just the 3rd princess consort. Even if she had the hidden army to protect her, she could not understand them in terms of officialdom. Their current benefits were linked to the various elders. Even if she became the Hellion clan successor, it was nothing more than an empty shell. It only sounded nice, that's all. A woman wanted to control them. Let's see how badly she would fall when the time came. However, these people did not know that just as they were looking down on Hellion Vivian and her advisor Beligaju had already arrived at the most inconspicuous mountainous county in Hebei province. Perhaps it was because the sky was not completely bright yet, so there were not many people on the streets. Other than a few hawkers who had set up stalls, there were very few people. Hellion Vivian observed her surroundings through the curtains. The only thing she felt was that there was a huge gap between the rich and the poor. If you asked her why she thought so, the answer was simple. Along the way from the West District to the East District, the houses in the West District were basically made of firewood and yellow soil. As for the East District, there was a dazzling array of large mansions. The degree of prosperity was comparable to the residence of a rank 1 official in the capital. Looks like the local tyrant here is living a good life. Hellion Vivian's lips curled up. Beligaju's expression hadn't changed from the beginning to the end. Even though he was wearing an inconspicuous shirt, the aura of a superior was still exuding from his body. In this world, there was a kind of person who could wear rough clothes and burlap sacks, but still look noble and elegant. Therefore, the people who were standing in front of the yamen to welcome the new county magistrate did not even take a look at Hellion Weiwei. When they saw Bailey Jiaju coming down from the carriage, they immediately went up to him with a face full of smiles. "You must be Lord Wei. Seeing you in person is better than hearing about you 100 times. I admire you." Hellion Vivian and Beligaju came to Fuping under false names, So Hellion Vivian used her own name as her surname. That person did not know that he had recognized the wrong person and continued, "This humble one has been waiting in front of the Yamen for a long time. Let me introduce myself. I am the Yamen's advisor Zhang. I have been here for more than 10 years. I know every county magistrate and have been promoted quite a bit. I hope to be able to assist Lord Wei well." Hellion Wei finally understood what Private Advisor Zhang was trying to say. His words sounded nice, but in reality, he was just trying to show her who was boss. However, it was obvious that he had found the wrong person. Advisor Zhang had been holding out his hand for a long time, but the person opposite him did not respond to him. He was starting to lose his cool and began to talk about his influence in this county yamen. Baligaju did not move at all and allowed him to continue. He did not seem to have any intention to respond to that hand, until Advisor Zhang's mouth was dry and his temper was about to erupt. Then he heard the other person speak calmly. His voice was indescribably pleasant and gentle. "My surname is not Wei." Did that mean that he had recognized the wrong person? Advisor Zhang was dumbfounded. His chest was heaving up and down. If his surname was not Wei, he should have said so earlier. He had been holding out his hand for almost half the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. His hand was already numb. "You are not Lord Wei, then?" Advisor Zhang shifted his gaze to Hellion Vivian, who was wearing a white gown. There were only 2 people here. If it was not the one just now, then it must be the one in front of him. However, he was a little too young. He had never seen such a young county magistrate. Hellion Vivian was delighted to see His Highness humiliating people. She stood up and smiled. "Advisor Zhang has never seen me before. It's normal that you have mistaken me for someone else." Ha ha ha, yes. My eyes are sometimes clumsy. Advisor Zhang felt that he was slapping his own face when he had just said that he had heard of him for a long time and now he had mistaken him for someone else. However, this little black face in front of him was very tender. This kind of person would not amount to much even if he came. Advisor Zhang had been in Fuping for a long time and there were people behind him. It was difficult for him to restrain his arrogance and thoughts. Naturally, he had underestimated Hellion Vivian and the rest. The people who came to Fuping County were either people with connections or were here to earn a sum of money before leaving. Or they were people who were not valued by the imperial court and simply arranged for a 9th-ranked official like him to be banished. In Advisor Zhang's opinion, the 2 people in front of him must be the latter. First of all, he had never heard of any young master in the capital becoming an official in the imperial court. Secondly, they had not received any orders from any family. Judging from their inconspicuous clothes, they did not look like young masters with power or influence. If he was tactful, he would not interfere in their affairs. Everything would be fine. If he was not tactful, he would have to suffer. Hellion Vivian did not miss the ruthless look that flashed across Advisor Zhang's face. She turned the silver ring on her ring finger and looked up at Baligaju. The playful look in their eyes was the same. However, the coldness in the eyes of the royal family was stronger than that of Hellion Vivian. A mere advisor could ignore the rules. It seemed that there was a lot to be gained in Fuping County. At this moment, they suddenly heard a pitiful cry for help. "Help! Hellion Vivian turned around and saw 2 burly men pulling a woman's long hair and dragging her somewhere. Chapter 461. Hellion Weiwei's pair of eyes quickly narrowed. Her voice was low and deep as she shouted, "Stop!" Private Advisor Zhang was still smiling, but when he heard Hellion Weiwei's words, he frowned and said, "Lord Wei, this has nothing to do with us. Let's go in and have a rest. You must be tired from the journey, so we don't have to worry about these trivial matters." Family affairs? Hellion Vivian sneered in her heart. Would there be 2 men dragging a girl around when it came to family affairs? However, she did not show it on her face. She only said indifferently, "Since you have seen it, I have to ask since I have just taken office." The 2 burly men turned around and looked at Hellion Vivian when they heard that someone was stopping them. They sneered, "Who do you think you are? Go away. I'm telling you, I won't let you go if you delay my business." Private Advisor Zhang, open his mouth. It was obvious that he wanted to stop the burly man. Hellion Vivian took a step forward and said in a deep voice, "Don't you know that the entrance of the county yamen is right in front of you? How dare you be so arrogant when you are so close to the yamen?" Yamen? The two burly men laughed. "Let alone the yamen. Even if the emperor came, we wouldn't be afraid. Don't you know that we are from the Yen Manor? This woman signed a contract to sell herself to our master. Now that she has taken the money and is trying to run away, what does it have to do with you if we capture her? If you are smart, get out of my way. Do you think you have the ability to control us? Young man, I can see that you are not a citizen of Fuping County. If you want to live, don't interfere. If you make a scene in the yamen, you will be the unlucky one." Upon hearing this, Hellion Vivian didn't get angry. Instead, she smiled. She had also figured out what was going on. She looked around, and the few vendors standing on the street didn't dare to step out. They all pretended not to see what was going on, and buried their heads in the tofu pudding in their hands. Private Advisor Zhang looked at the two burly men. Realizing that they did not recognize him, he could not help but feel anxious. He was afraid that they would say something else, so he shouted, "Are you guys still being reasonable? Hurry up and do what you're supposed to do." The two burly men looked at Private Advisor Zhang as if he was an idiot. Here comes another one who doesn't know his place. Acting recklessly, Private Advisor Zhang was infuriated by these two idiots. Since when did the Yen Manor accept these two people? He didn't even recognize him. "Do you know who I am? How dare you talk to me like that?" Private Advisor Zhang said this partly out of anger and partly as a reminder. He wanted the two burly men to restrain themselves. To his surprise, the two burly men burst into laughter. "You may be well dressed, but look at the two people next to you wearing rags. They are obviously poor people. In Fuping County, even the county magistrate has to be polite to the people from the Yen Manor. Who do you think you are?" "Oh." Hellion Vivian smiled playfully. "From what you've said, it sounds like the yamen is run by the Yen Manor." "Of course." The two burly men crossed their arms and raised their heads. "Go and find out about the power of the Yen Manor. Private Advisor Zhang and Steward Zhang of the Yen Manor are cousins. Now you know where the yamen is run by, right?" Hellion Vivian's smile deepened at the end of their conversation. "I see." "Private Advisor Zhang, what do you think we should do about this?" Private Advisor Zhang's expression was uglier than a daylily. He looked at the two burly men with disappointment. No matter how stupid the burly men were, they finally realized what had happened. They looked at Private Advisor Zhang with pale lips. You, Private Advisor Zhang, we didn't do it on purpose. Shut up." Private Advisor Zhang cut them off angrily. He did not want them to say anything stupid again. Hellion Vivian's eyes turned cold. "Now you should know where the yamen is run by, right?" The two burly men's faces stiffened. They laughed dryly and said, "We failed to recognize Private Advisor Zhang. If we knew you were one of us, who is one of you?" Hellion Vivian interrupted them coldly. Private Advisor Zhang stood in the middle and said hesitantly, "Lord Wei, it's not our place to interfere in the affairs of the Yen Manor, Private Advisor Zhang." Hellion Vivian said slowly, "According to what you're saying, even if someone kills someone in front of the yamen should not interfere? Then, what's the use of the yamen?" Private Advisor Zhang quickly said, "No, Lord Wei, that's not what I meant. You heard them. They said that they bought this woman into the Yen Manor. Since she has entered the Yen Manor and signed a contract to sell her body, she is one of the Yen Manor's people. If she runs away, she will be beaten. It's perfectly justified." Upon hearing Private Advisor Zhang's words, the woman felt that she would definitely be dragged into the wolf's den again if she did not speak up for herself. In a panic, she tugged at Hellion Wei's sleeve and begged, "Young master, I beg of you, please save me. Please save me. I didn't sign a contract to sell myself to them. I'm the daughter of the head of the household. They dragged me here to force me to accompany their master. I don't want to. I don't want to, no matter how much money they give me. I beg you, save me." Hellion Wei looked at the pair of eyes that longed to escape and reached out to support her. Only then did she realize that her arm had been dislocated when she pulled just now. She really could not imagine that someone would dare to do such a thing right in front of the Yamen entrance. Private Advisor Zhang, you heard the truth of the matter. Hellion Vivian lowered her voice. Most people would know that this was a sign that she was about to lose her temper. Private Advisor Zhang still wanted to explain for the two men, Lord Wei, this. If you still want to protect your reputation as a private advisor, arrest them immediately. Hellion Vivian sneered. Otherwise, I'll throw you into the prison too. Private Advisor Zhang panicked when he heard this. After all, he had never seen such a tough county magistrate. He had no choice but to ask his men to detain the two men first. The burly man seemed to be very unconvinced as he stared at the woman. The woman was so frightened that she took a step back. Hellion Vivian saw this and softened her voice. You need medical treatment. Come with me to the Yamen first. I want to go home. The woman did not raise her head. Big drops of tears were rolling down her cheeks. Hellion Vivian glanced at Private Advisor Zhang, who was not far away. You can't avoid this matter by going home. Sometimes, when you're targeted, you have to get rid of that person once and for all. Only then can the matter be settled. Hearing Hellion Vivian's words, the woman suddenly raised her head. Her teary eyes hid too much hatred. Chapter 462. Can it be solved? If it can be solved, I'm willing to do anything. Even if it takes my life, I don't mind. The woman was so agitated that she grabbed Hellion Vivian's sleeve. Hellion Vivian smiled. I don't need your life, but I do need your cooperation. Follow me into the Yamen first. Your injuries must be recorded and used as evidence in the future. The woman had not heard the word evidence for a long time. She looked at Hellion Vivian gratefully and wiped the tears off her face. I've been forgetting to ask, who are you, young master? My surname is Wei. I'm the newly appointed county magistrate of Fuping County, Hellion Vivian said in a clear voice. I've just arrived in Fuping County when I encountered this incident. The woman was stunned. County magistrate? As she spoke, she sized up Hellion Vivian. So young? Yes. Hellion Vivian nodded with a faint smile. The woman still could not believe it, but she seemed to have heard Private Advisor Zhang calling her Lord Wei just now while she was still in a daze. They had already entered the Yamen. Hellion Vivian asked someone to make tea. She held the teacup in one hand and pinched the woman's arm with the other. Then, without any warning, she exerted force. Ah! The woman screamed and looked at Hellion Vivian with cold sweat dripping down her face. Hellion Vivian withdrew her hand and turned around, as if she was looking for someone. Beligaju, who had been silent all this while, pulled out the white handkerchief he always carried with him with an indifferent expression. He held her hand in his palm and wiped it casually. Hellion Vivian smiled. It felt different to be served by the royal family. At this moment, the woman seemed to have just noticed Beligaju beside Hellion Vivian. Her face turned red in an instant. She had never seen such a handsome man before. He looked so dazzling. Noticing her gaze, Hellion Vivian looked over and said, This is Private Advisor Longham, he's married. Beligaju smiled when he heard the last two words. Then he reached out and patted Hellion Vivian on the head. The woman's expression was a bit petrified. Why did she feel that there was something strange between the new county magistrate and the private advisor? The relationship between Milord and Grand Advisor is really good. Hellion Vivian smiled and said, We are classmates. So they're classmates. No wonder. The woman moved her wrist and felt the faint pain disappear. When she looked at Hellion Vivian, the gratitude in her eyes intensified. She then asked from the bottom of her heart, Lord Wei, let me ask you, did you come to Fuping County through your connections? Hellion Vivian's thin lips curved. No. Then Lord Wei shouldn't get involved in this matter. The woman lowered her eyes. I don't want to implicate Lord Wei and cause him to lose his position as an official because of me. Hellion Vivian took a sip of tea. I don't understand what you mean. I'm just following the law. Why can't I be an official? Lord Wei, you heard how powerful the Yen Manor is. Private Advisor Zhang has been with them for so many years that they are inseparable. The woman laughed softly. Her laughter was full of bitterness and mockery. Hellion Vivian did not seem to be surprised by anything. She smiled faintly. "My lord, you seem to have forgotten that the county magistrate's position is higher than the private advisor's. Private advisor Zhang is just the tip of the iceberg." When the woman saw that the other party did not take her words seriously, she became a little anxious. The Yen family has connections in the capital city, and some of them are so powerful that no one can afford to offend them. In the past, there were honest and upright officials in Fuping County, but after they became as greedy as them in less than a month. Those people once said that they would take the life of anyone who gets in their way. If Lord Wei doesn't have connections with the higher-ups and help me vent my anger, you will become their target sooner or later. It's hard to find good people nowadays, and even harder to find good officials. I don't want Lord Wei to ruin your career because of me. The other party was younger than her and looked about the same age as her younger brother. Her younger brother was beaten up so badly that he could not get out of bed because he wanted to go against those people. Hellion Vivian changed her posture and put down the teacup in her hand. "As an official, it's my duty to serve the people. If I don't help you with this matter, how can I be considered a good official?" "Lord Wei, you're still young. You don't understand. There are many people like me who have been targeted by the Yen family's old master. The women who were abducted even jointly wrote a petition to collect evidence and planned to go to the capital city to complain. However, they were stopped by the prefectural magistrate's people before they could leave the province. The relationship between them is too deep. It's so deep that ordinary people like us can't afford to offend them." Hellion Vivian smiled. "There's no such thing as whether you can afford to offend or not. There's only right and wrong. After talking for so long, I still don't know your name." "My name is Lu Yin." The woman's eyes were filled with worry. "My lord, please listen to my advice. We can just move away. Since old Master Yen is still unconscious, he won't notice if we leave. You still have to stay in Fuping County for a while. I know you're an upright person, but you can only blame yourself for being unlucky when you encounter such a situation." Hellion Vivian interrupted her with a faint smile. "Lu Yin, I've already understood the basic situation. I've also asked Private Advisor Long to make a record. You can go back first. The Yamen will probably look for you tomorrow. You don't have to panic by then. Just say what you need to say. Since I'm here, I'll change Fuping County. There's no such thing as being unlucky. As I said before, as an official, it's my duty to serve the people." Lu Yin looked at the gentle smile on Hellion Vivian's face. It was probably because she had never seen such an official before. It was as if he had the power to convince people just by standing there, even though he was just a child.
Deshon.
Hellion Vivian's voice changed and became much deeper. Before Lu Yin could react, a black shadow flashed in front of her eyes. That person was 3 heads taller than her. Not only was he tall, but he was also very burly. She did not know how his hands and feet were so nimble. He was carrying a long black pipe on his shoulder. She could not tell what he was doing. She only felt that this person was not to be trifled with. He was even more terrifying than the hired thugs in the Yen Manor. "Young lord," De Xiong chuckled. "Are you looking for me?" Hellion Vivian glanced at Lu Yin. "Go back with Miss Lu Yin. If anyone dares to harass her, beat them up regardless of whether they're from the Yen Manor or the Yamen. Don't worry, young lord. A man who hits a woman is a disgrace to all men. I'll beat them up until they cry for their parents." De Xiong patted his chest and promised. Hellion Vivian trusted his ability to beat people up. After she sent the 2 of them off with a smile, the Yamen's manservant rushed in and reported loudly, "My lord, there's a message from the Yen Manor. They want to invite you to Tianfeng Pavilion for a gathering." Chapter 463. The Yen Manor wants to have a gathering with me? Hellion Vivian and Beligaju looked at each other. Beligaju still looked indifferent, but Hellion Vivian had a hint of playfulness in her eyes. The servant who reported to her nodded and said, "Old Master Yen said that since you have just taken office, he wants to set up a welcome banquet for you." Hellion Vivian smiled. "I don't even know Old Master Yen. Why would he set up a welcome banquet for me? You don't have to think too much. Old Master Yen does this every year when a new county magistrate takes office. In the servant's opinion, this was normal. However, he did not know that the information that was accidentally leaked was Old Master Yen's doing. A businessman who was so knowledgeable about official matters was definitely not easy to deal with. It was better to meet him early than late. Since he had sent her an invitation, she had to go and have a meal even if it was a hongmen banquet. Hellion Vivian folded the invitation in her hand. All right, lead the way then. The banquet was held in the best wine shop in Fuping County. This wine shop was famous in the surrounding villages. Every dish was very expensive, so ordinary people would not be able to enter. The owner of this wine shop was Old Master Yen. Old Master Yen and the others had already arrived. They were well-dressed and well-fed. He wore a large gold ring on his finger and drank his tea with a sullen expression. Private Advisor Zhang was standing beside him, whispering something to him with his head lowered. Old Master Yen laughed. As the saying goes, a new official sweeps clean after taking office. This Wei guy is quite daring. Don't worry, I won't start a feud with him right away. I'll see how he reacts later. If he knows what's good for him, I'll let it go. The main thing is that Magistrate Liao wants to make friends with him, right? Magistrate Liao? Private Advisor Zhang was surprised to hear that. Who was this Magistrate Liao? He was in charge of several counties. Why did he choose Lord Wei, who had the surname Lai? Magistrate Liao picked up his teacup and took a sip. 2 days ago, the imperial court allocated a sum of money to Fuping County. It has to go through Lord Wei's hands. If we want to get the money, we have to rope him in. Allocated to Fuping County? It was the first time Old Master Yen heard about this. He could not help but look surprised. How did Lord Wei have the ability to get the imperial court to allocate money to him? Does he have a powerful force behind him? Private Advisor Zhang's eyes widened. That can't be. I asked Lord Wei this morning. And he doesn't look like someone behind him. Besides, he's dressed very plainly. The two of you have been by my side for too long, so your thoughts are complicated. Magistrate Liao laughed heartily. What do you mean by power? It's just a coincidence. The retired emperor has been doing a lot of things in Hebei recently. Our Fuping County is also producing a lot of jujubes. If we do well, of course, good things will fall on our heads. Old Master Yen heaved a sigh of relief. So that's the case. That's hard to say. When that Wei guy arrives, we'll be more polite to him. As long as he gets on our boat, we'll be able to get the money. That's the theory. As Magistrate Liao spoke, he turned around and instructed Private Advisor Zhang. You should follow Lord Wei more closely. He's a new official. I've asked around. He's just better at studying and doesn't know many people. He knows more about the twists and turns of officialdom. It's inevitable that he doesn't think of some things, and it makes people uncomfortable when he handles them. We should rope him in if we can. If we can't rope him in, we'll be able to react quickly when we notice a problem. Private Advisor Zhang nodded and said, When I saw him doing things this morning, I felt that he's a little too tough. He didn't even care about my interference and arrested the people from Yen Manor. Now that I think about it, it's probably because he's new in officialdom and hasn't been taught before. After all, he was just a small character. There was no need to pay too much attention to him. As the three of them were talking, the waiter outside shouted, Lord Wei is here. Private Advisor Zhang and Old Master Yen looked at each other. Then, they stood up and greeted Hellion Wei Wei as she pushed the door open and entered the room with a smile on their faces. Oh, so this is Lord Wei. A young hero indeed. Magistrate Liao, look at him. It's rare to see someone become a county magistrate at such a young age. Old Master Yen complimented Hellion Vivian as soon as he saw her, but his sincerity remained to be seen. Hellion Vivian continued calmly, This must be Old Master Yen. I've heard a lot about you. You flatter me. Come, sit down. Old Master Yen looked at Hellion Vivian as he greeted them. When he saw Beligaju behind her, he couldn't help but be stunned by his unique temperament. Who is this? Magistrate Liao also saw Beligaju. He thought that he had seen many big shots, but it was rare to see such a handsome man in front of him. Hellion Vivian blocked Beligaju without a trace. She looked indifferent. This is my private advisor. His surname is long. Private advisor? Didn't private advisor Zhang already work in the Yamen? He even brought private advisor Zhang with him. Wasn't this a slap to private advisor Zhang's face? Magistrate Liao narrowed his eyes. Private advisor Zhang's mouth was obviously stiff. Lord Wei brought private advisor Zhang with you? Hellion Vivian nodded lightly and said slowly, Private advisor Long is taking office with me. I guess private advisor Zhang hasn't seen the official notice yet. Private advisor Zhang indeed didn't read it carefully. Now that he thought about it, he immediately prepared to greet the new county magistrate when he saw that he was going to take office. He didn't care about private advisor Zhang at all. Seeing private advisor Zhang's awkward expression, old Master Yan stood up directly and helped him out. Lord Wei, let's sit down first. Let's sit down and talk. The dishes are cold. Hellion Vivian didn't refuse. She sat down with a smile. Beligaju didn't say a word from beginning to end. He looked indifferent and gently turned the teacup in his hand. Since he was just a private advisor, he didn't need to care too much. Old Master Yan thought that he was some big shot. His heart even skipped a beat just now. He thought that he was just a good-looking guy. Even so, private advisor Zhang was still embarrassed. After he sat down, he said, Why is this tea so disgusting? I'll ask the servants to bring up another pot. As he spoke, there was anger in his voice. Magistrate Liao watched private advisor Zhang leave. He shook his head and smiled at Hellion Vivian. Private advisor Zhang is still a little impatient. Don't take it to heart. Hellion Vivian looked at Magistrate Liao's face. I haven't asked. You are? Old Master Yan laughed again. Lord Wei is really a new official. You haven't even met Magistrate Liao. Logically speaking, shouldn't you meet the magistrate first before taking office? Chapter 464. Xiao Wei's situation is different. My superior is anxious. Magistrate Liao waved his hand, indicating that he did not care. It's not too late to know each other now. You have to manage Fuping County well. Hellion Wei smirked. Haha, I will definitely deal with the matters that need to be dealt with. For example, when I arrived at the Yamen today, I saw two burly men trying to rob a girl on the street. I immediately arrested them, and now they are still in prison. I believe Private Advisor Zhang has already told you about this. Is that so? Magistrate Liao looked surprised. Hellion Vivian smiled again. There was a hint of meaning in her thin lips. Does Magistrate Liao not know anything? Of course. Magistrate Liao slammed the wooden table. These people are deceiving their superiors and subordinates. It's time to teach them a lesson. Hellion Vivian glanced at old Master Yan, who had an unpleasant expression on his face, and said calmly, If Magistrate Liao wants to do it, it will definitely be effective. I don't dare to say that it will be effective. Magistrate Liao said meaningfully. However, it is still effective to make someone obedient. Lord Wei, you must remember this. Was he warning her? The smile on Hellion Vivian's face deepened, but there was no change in her expression. On the contrary, Beligaju, who was sitting beside her, looked at Magistrate Liao with his beautiful eyes, which had never been seen before. Magistrate Liao did not notice it. He only felt that the side of his face was a little cold. He took a sip of tea to dispel the coldness in his body. Then he looked at Hellion Vivian. Seeing that she did not have much of a reaction, he thought that Hellion Vivian was thinking about what he said and was afraid of him. It was fine as long as she was afraid. Everything had to stop at a certain point. He still wanted to have a good talk with this person with the surname Wei. It was not worth it to fall out with her over two servants. I'm here to discuss the development of Fuping County with you, little Wei. As Magistrate Liao spoke, he picked up a piece of vegetable with his chopsticks and put it in his mouth to chew. You are well educated. Think about what we should do if we want to become rich in Fuping County. I have discussed this with Old Yan. Old Yan is the most successful businessman in Fuping County. His opinion is that we should build a road. As long as we build this road, we can send all the fruits and pears in Fuping County to the capital to sell. When Hellion Vivian heard this, She put down the teacup in her hand and said, "If I remember correctly, there should be a road in Fuping County that leads to the capital city. Since there was already a road, what else could it be but to make money by building another one? How can one path be enough?" Old Master Yen said, "The more roads we build, the better. What I mean is, the more benefits we'll have in Fuping County." When Hellion Vivian saw the expression on Old Master Yen and Magistrate Liao's face, the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. As expected, they came with the intention of making money. Since ancient times, the project of building roads had been a big fat piece of meat in the eyes of officials of all levels. Before she came, her imperial grandfather had said that he was going to allocate a batch of funds to Fuping County. He was worried that the funds would be embezzled by his subordinates, so he asked her to be careful when she came. Magistrate Liao had his eyes on the funds before the funds arrived, and he even came up with the idea of building roads. It seemed that the people in the capital city had their hands in this matter as well. However, she was not sure which family this Magistrate Liao belonged to. Once she was clear, she would deal with all of them. Hellion Vivian drank 2 mouthfuls of tea and said in a calm voice, "The Yamen doesn't have much money. If we were to build roads, we would need to spend a lot of money." "Lord Wei, you don't have to worry about this," Old Master Yen immediately said. "We have a way to get the money when the time comes." Hellion Vivian replied with an, "Oh, what do you mean by that, Old Master Yen?" "There are still a lot of stored food in the Yamen's warehouse. If we sell all the stored food, we can get 1 million taels of silver." "Lord Wei, what do you think of this idea?" Hellion Vivian wanted to kick him away and tell him to fuck off. He was obviously using the people's life-saving money to satisfy his own selfish desires. Every year, there would be a drought in Fuping County, but it was not obvious yet. The stored food in the warehouse was for the people to use during the drought, just in case. Now, this Yen guy actually wanted to sell the life-saving food. Hellion Vivian had dozens of ideas to kill him in her mind. It was because of this that she could sit more firmly in her seat, and the smile on her face did not diminish at all. 1 million taels of silver is not enough, right? Indeed, it is not enough. But if it is not enough, we still have the funds from the imperial court. Together, this matter will be settled. Old Master Yen raised his wine cup and drank a mouthful of wine happily. Hellion Vivian laughed. "Old Master Yen, aren't you afraid that the higher-ups will punish you when something happens and the food is gone? We're just using it for a while. When we have the money, we can buy some food and return it. Isn't that enough?" Old Master Yen said one thing after another. It seemed like this was not the first time he had done this kind of thing. Magistrate Liao listened at the side and nodded from time to time. Hellion Vivian just smiled and did not say anything. Everyone knew that once the food was gone, it would be very difficult to return it. However, Magistrate Liao actually agreed to it. It seemed like these two people had made up their minds to take all the food in the warehouse. Logically speaking, a magistrate and a businessman would not be so daring. There must be someone behind this. Magistrate Liao appeared in Fuping County at this time and looked like he wanted to interfere in the management of Fuping County. The reason behind this was very clear. It was all for money. Magistrate Liao noticed that Hellion Weiwei had not uttered a single word, so he decided to beat around the bush and said, "Little Wei, this road repair is not only beneficial to the people, it's also beneficial to you. Think about it, with such a huge contribution, it'll be easy for you to get a promotion in the future." Lord Liao is thinking too far. I have always had small ambitions. In my opinion, it is good to stay in Fuping County. Hellion Vivian still had a faint smile on her face. Magistrate Liao was rebuffed. He cursed in his heart that she did not know what was good for her. The smile on his face turned cold. Since Little Wei is not so ambitious, then stay in the Yamen and think about how to serve the people. This is what I have been thinking about all along. Hellion Weiwei did not even touch her food as she stood up and said, "The 2 people we caught are still being interrogated. When the interrogation is done, I would like to invite Old Master Yen to come to the Yamen." "Lord Liao, please continue to drink. I will not accompany you." Old Master Yen was dumbfounded. What did she mean by asking him to come to the Yamen after the interrogation is done? What was he going to do? To bring people back? After Hellion Vivian and the rest left, old Master Yan's first reaction was to ask Magistrate Liao, "What is the meaning of this way person?" Magistrate Liao's face darkened. He is just a nameless pawn. He wants to pray for the people because of his hot-bloodedness. However, looking at him, I don't think he wants to have a big conflict with us. Don't worry, and do it boldly. Get all the money you want from me. Chapter 465. Don't worry, Lord Liao. I'll ask Private Advisor Zhang to open the warehouse and sell the grain tomorrow. Once the money arrives, I'll find a way to get it. Master Yan said firmly. However, he didn't know that Hellion Vivian already had the idea of catching him at noon in the Liu family's house. Hellion Weiwei looked at Liu Yin with a faint smile and said in a clear voice, "That's the gist of it. I hope that Miss Liu can come to the Yamen tomorrow to testify against Miss Yan. If other girls are present, the effect will be even better." Liu Yin thought for a while and said, "Lord Wei, I heard from the people in the county that Magistrate Liao is here. Magistrate Liao has always been protecting the Yan Manor. Even if we jointly submit a petition, it will only make things difficult for you. The Yan Manor has a strong background, but Magistrate Liao has a strong background. Lord Wei, are you really not afraid? He's just a small magistrate. Our young master can just lift a finger and—" Before De Xiong could finish his words, Hellion Vivian interrupted him. "Even if you have a strong background, you can't do whatever you want. There will always be a way." Hearing this, Liu Yin was a little uncertain about her identity. "Lord Wei, are you related to the Wei family in the capital city?"
No.
Hellion Vivian smiled. "Why? Is the Wei family very powerful?" Liu Yin lowered her eyes in disappointment. "They are all from big families. If it's the Wei family, they might be able to compete with Magistrate Liao. Lord Wei is alone. This is really difficult. The more difficult it is, the more my young master likes to do it." De Xiong knew that he had said too much just now, so he was trying to make up for it. "She likes to do that." Hellion Vivian smiled faintly. "Liu Yin, don't worry. Since I dare to ask you to testify, I will take corresponding measures. So you don't have to worry so much. I will solve all the problems you are thinking about." "I know Lord Wei's character." Liu Yin hesitated for a while and said, "But the others are not me. After so many years, everyone is afraid. If it wasn't for the fact that Yan would never have the chance to recover in one move, it would be better not to touch him at all." It wasn't as if such a situation had never happened before. Even if they were convicted, they would still be imprisoned for a day or two. However, after a day or two, Old Master Yan would be allowed to do whatever he wanted. Not only that, they would even retaliate. "I'm not afraid. This is the worst that can happen to me. My parents will move away tomorrow. But for the others, unless they have no other choice, no one wants to leave their hometown." Upon hearing Liu Yin's words, Hellion Vivian stared at her solemnly. "I won't let any of the villagers of Fuping County be forced to leave. The ones who should leave are Yan and Liao, not you." Lord Wei. When Liu Yin opened her mouth again, her eyes were red. If she had a choice, how could she not want to stay by her parents' side and marry a good man? Hellion Vivian folded the paper fan in her hand and said with a smile, "Let's put this matter aside for now. Since you've been living in Fuping County for so long, I'd like to ask, what is the most important thing for us villagers to solve now? Does it have anything to do with road construction?" Road construction again. Before Liu Yin could say anything, Father Liu walked in from outside and put the hoe in his hand aside. The helplessness on his face was truly sorrowful. "It's only been a few years and we've already had to repair the roads 4 times. Every time we have to repair the roads, we have to pay a heavy price. Not only that, but we also have to delay our farming efforts. Yin, let's just leave. We can't stay in Fuping County any longer." "Oh, Master. Old Master. Why can't you open your eyes?" Liu Yin could not bear to see her old father like this. With tears in her eyes, she helped him up. "Father, don't be like this. Lord Wei is still here. There's still hope." "Lord Wei." Father Liu smiled bitterly. "I heard what you said just now. If Lord Wei continues to go against them, he can't even protect himself. If he continues to meddle in the road construction, he might be targeted by them. In fact, even if we don't repair the road, the land is dry, and we can't grow any food. The seeds have been planted for half a month, and we haven't seen any rain at all. Our good days are coming to an end. It's better to leave as soon as possible. Hellion Vivian took a step forward and helped Lu Yin to support Father Lu. If you really want to leave, you won't be so sad now. Father Lu, I promise you that no one can ask for money from the people under the pretext of road construction. As for the drought in the land, I already have a plan in mind. Although Fuping County is dry land, we grow a lot of food every year. 60% of the food in the capital city comes from here. The higher-ups value this place very much. It's just that the people below have done something wrong. That's why Father Lu is so worried. When I entered the county, I noticed that there seems to be a river at the other end of Fuping County. There's still a way. Father Lu's eyes lit up when he heard Hellion Vivian mention the river. He then sighed. Lord Wei, you're really different from them. There have been a few county magistrates in the past, but none of them have seen the river before. Maybe they have, but no one mentioned it. Hellion Vivian's voice was very calm. Father Lu was stunned. That's true.
Who would want to mention it?
They're all busy earning money.
This matter will be solved.
Hellion Vivian retracted her gaze. Before the case starts tomorrow, the water from the river will be able to irrigate the land. When the time comes, I hope that Father Lu will agree to let Miss Lu testify against Yen. Father Lu could not believe it, but it's only been a day. It's enough. This time, it was Beligaju who spoke. Compared to Hellion Vivian, his voice carried an innate superior aura that made everyone involuntarily submit to him. Before Father Lu could react, Hellion Vivian had already curled her thin lips. Does Private Advisor Long have a good idea? Beligaju glanced at her. He did not say anything, but there was a meaningful look at the corner of his mouth. Hellion Vivian could not help but feel her scalp go numb from his smile. She coughed softly. Yes, I understand what Private Advisor Long means. Let's go to the provincial capital, right? I'll do whatever Lord Wei says. I'm just a private advisor. Of course I have to listen to Lord Wei. Beligaja's voice carried an obvious playfulness. Is His Highness addicted to acting? Hellion Vivian felt hurt when she heard this. She turned her head and silently complained to Dexiong, who was also hurt internally. The provincial capital? Father Lu looked at them worriedly and quickly stopped them. That's Lord Liao's base camp. Everyone there has connections with the officials in the capital. If you go there, you'll lose your life. Lord Wei, please don't be impulsive. It won't do you any good. Chapter 466. Hellion Vivian smiled. We know what we're doing. Dexiong, you'll stay here with Miss Lu. I'll say the same thing again. No matter who comes, we'll still beat them up. If someone doesn't know what's good for them, you can use the gun you're carrying at any time. Yes, Dexiong accepted the order in a low voice. Every word he said seemed to shake the dry grass on the mud house. It was not unreasonable for Hellion Vivian to leave him here alone. He looked like the kind of person who was not to be trifled with. He was tall and strong, and he had martial qi. As long as the other party did not attack seriously, Dexiong could easily deal with a dozen yamen runners. It was because of Dexiong's presence that the guards sent by the Yen Manor did not dare to make a move. They looked at each other and decided to report back to the manor first. Old Master Yen, who was waiting to carry the beauty home, did not know what was going on. Seeing that the lady did not carry her back, he kicked the guard. Useless. You can't even do such a simple task. Old Master, it's not that we can't do it, but the newly appointed Master Wei sent a martial artist to squat at the entrance of Old Lu's house. We couldn't enter even if we wanted to. That person held his aching abdomen and said with difficulty, moreover, Master Wei is there, so we can't do anything. He left a long time ago. I heard that he's going to the provincial capital, but I don't know what he's going to do. As he was speaking, a report was heard from outside. Private Advisor Zhang is here. Old Master Yen had just turned his head when Private Advisor Zhang walked in hastily. Bad news. Old Master Yen, bad news. What's the matter? Speak slowly. The person who said this was not Old Master Yen, but Magistrate Liao, who walked out from the inner room. He was carrying a young lady in his arms. The young lady did not look very willing, but she seemed to be afraid of something. She let him do as he pleased and did not dare to resist. Magistrate Liao was originally in a good mood, but after Private Advisor Zhang's interference, his voice turned cold. Private Advisor Zhang spoke to Magistrate Liao with extra caution. Lord Liao, I don't know what's wrong with that Master Wei, but he's going to the provincial capital. Going to the provincial capital at this time? Magistrate Liao narrowed his eyes coldly. What does he want to do? Private Advisor Zhang took a deep breath and said, It seems to be to connect the fields to the river. Just this? Magistrate Liao raised his eyebrows. Nothing else? Private Advisor Zhang paused for a moment and glanced at Old Master Yen. He seems to want to punish Old Master Yen. Punish me? When Old Master Yen heard this, he jumped up in anger. I haven't even blamed that Wei fellow for ruining my plans, yet he still dares to report me to the provincial capital. Good, this is really good. I'll get someone to kill him right now. Upon hearing this, Magistrate Liao snorted. Nonsense. No matter what, he was still an official of the imperial court. He had just taken office, but he was killed by someone. Do you think that the higher-ups haven't been watching us closely enough recently? Do you want to find some trouble to taste? That's not what I meant, but look at that Wei fellow. Isn't he asking for it the hard way? Old Master Yen stuck out his big belly and said, We just finished eating together. No matter how stupid he is, he should know what kind of status I have and what kind of status you have. He still wants to catch me. Isn't that looking down on you? Magistrate Liao was one of the calmer ones among them. Old Yen, you're too hot-tempered. Think about it, can he arrest you just because he wants to? So, what if he goes to the provincial capital? Who will meet him? It doesn't matter if he has connections, but he doesn't have money. Not to mention meeting anyone. No one will even let him enter the mansion. As soon as Old Master Yen heard Magistrate Liao's words and imagined the scenario, he laughed out loud. You're right. Why didn't I think of this? That Wei guy is going to face a lot of rejections when he enters the provincial capital. We can use this opportunity to take him down a notch. I'll let him know whose territory Fuping County belongs to. Shut up if you want to live in this county in the future, and get lost if you don't want to live in this county. That's right. Magistrate Liao took a sip of tea, his eyes darkened. The most important thing now is that batch of funds. Think of a way to get it. It's more reliable than anything else. Old Master Yen nodded as he listened. 2 hours had passed, but the Yen mansion was still in a state of luxury. The provincial capital was much more prosperous and peaceful than Fuping County, but it was just a facade. Hellion Vivian was indeed rejected, and she didn't even get to enter the gate. However, after being rejected, her first reaction was to look at Bailey Jiaju. She shook her head and said with conviction, I thought that bringing the third prince out of the house would make me look good. In the capital, there are only a few officials who have seen me, let alone here. Bailey Jiaju said casually, but it also revealed his unparalleled nobility. Wei Wei also knew that it was impossible for the local officials to have seen third prince before. If they knew who this private advisor that they rejected outside the door was, she reckoned that afterwards, those people would definitely be extremely regretful, so regretful that even their intestines would turn green. However, it was precisely because none of the officials here had seen Baligaju that some things would be more effective. Otherwise, there would be no point in going incognito. However, it seems that I really should look for some connections. The corners of Wei Wei's mouth curved up as she turned around and arrived at a very luxurious-looking restaurant. Baligaju slowly turned the silver ring on his ring finger. The Leaf family's property. Nothing can escape your eyes. Hellion Vivian smiled faintly and walked in. The business in the restaurant was good, and because it was so good, there were many people walking in and out. Hellion Vivian stood downstairs and looked around, as if she was looking for someone. At this time, a man with a big belly bumped into her. He was still holding a wine cup in his hand. Hellion Vivian's reaction was fast enough. She moved her feet and dodged. However, because of the man's carelessness, the wine in the cup spilled out and stuck to his clothes. You? The man was angry on the spot. Of all the places to stand, why did you have to stand here? Hellion Vivian didn't say anything. She just looked at him indifferently, as if she was looking at an idiot. The man laughed coldly. What are you looking at? You're just a villager. Do you know how much this set of clothes is worth? You're just a country bumpkin who has never seen the world. Now that the clothes are stained with wine, it can't be washed off. Tell me, how are you going to compensate me? Hellion Vivian's thin lips curved, but those long and narrow eyes didn't have the slightest trace of warmth. You were the one who bumped into me, and you still want compensation? Chapter 467. Oh, so you don't want to compensate? The man looked down at Hellion Vivian arrogantly. Hellion Vivian didn't buy it at all. You should be the one to compensate me. You want me to compensate you? The man seemed to have heard a joke. He went up to Hellion Vivian and tried to push her away. Do you know who I am? No one in the provincial capital dares to ask me for compensation. Hellion Vivian stood there calmly, like a tree. That's because you haven't met me yet. When the man heard this, he seemed to have been set on fire. He went up and grabbed Hellion Vivian's clothes. He said in a gloomy voice, "What did you say? Say it again, if you dare." Beligaju's eyes turned cold the moment the man grabbed Hellion Vivian's collar. If it wasn't for Hellion Wei holding his hand, that man would have been dismembered by now. Hellion Vivian stopped him not because she wanted to let him go, but because she saw a familiar person walking over. When the man saw her face, he immediately shouted excitedly, "Boss, why are you here? Shouldn't you be at the Imperial?" Chun Liang. Hellion Vivian smiled and interrupted him. Then, she shrugged and said, "Do you think I'm in a suitable situation to catch up with you?" Chun Liang admitted that he was indeed confused. He didn't want to interact with these officials at first. It was because his father's position was too high. People in the provincial capital tried to curry favor with him, so he had no choice but to eat and drink like this every day. He was annoyed, but he didn't expect to see his boss when he came down the stairs. Moreover, his boss was being grabbed by the collar. This didn't fit her style. When she was in the academy, she could take on 10 people by herself. She wasn't violent at all. It wasn't like her. Although he thought so, he couldn't take it lying down when he saw his boss being grabbed by the collar. Without saying anything, Chun Liang rushed over and gave the man a kick. He had always been an unyielding general. Of course, he wouldn't waste his breath. The man's face was twisted from the kick. He held the round wooden table and cursed, "You lowly villagers. How dare you hit me? You've all gone blind. Men, take them down." However, no one dared to make a move. The man slapped the table angrily. "I'll take them down. Master Liao, this..." The owner of the wine shop wanted to approach the man and say something. The man with the surname Liao waved his hand and pushed him away. "Don't talk nonsense with me. Country bumpkin, I will tell you today. My father is the current magistrate, and I am the law of this provincial capital. If you want to leave peacefully, you better kneel on the ground and kowtow to me 3 times. Otherwise, I will send people to arrest you right now." I thought he had a powerful background. Chun Liang chuckled. "So, he's just the son of a mere magistrate. Do you believe that I can kill you right now?" Master Liao was used to running amok in the provincial capital all these years. Every time he mentioned his father's name, the other party would be scared witless. Who would have thought that he would meet 3 fearless people this time? Moreover, he couldn't hear the mockery in his voice. Chun Liang sneered. "Kill me? Since you want to compete with your family background, I will compete with you. Your father is the magistrate, right? Then do you know who my father is?" Master Liao shook his head. The owner standing at the side couldn't bear to see him being so stupid. He reminded him softly, "Master Chun is the second son of the governor of 3 provinces." Master Liao's expression changed immediately. His face turned extremely pale. Since 2 days ago, His father had been reminding him to find a way to invite Master Chen out for a meal and a drink so that he could be on good terms with him. He had tried for 2 days but failed to invite this mountain out. He didn't expect to meet him under such circumstances. The man with the surname Liao wished he hadn't said those words at all. Without thinking, he reached out his hand and slapped himself. He had to force a smile. Look at my eyes. I really didn't recognize Mount Tai. So it's Child Chen. Isn't this like the flood rushing against the Dragon King's temple? We don't recognize each other anymore. Who's your family? Chun Liang's principle was to get as far away as possible from those who dared to provoke their boss. Moreover, this Master Liao was a scumbag to begin with. Master Liao kept wiping the cold sweat on his forehead. Master Chen, please don't say that. If there's a misunderstanding, let's solve it properly. Misunderstanding? Chun Liang had no idea what was going on. He was enraged when he saw his boss being bullied the moment he arrived. Now that he heard Liao's words, he subconsciously turned around to look at Helian Weiwei. However, when he saw the silent figure, Chun Liang almost threw the wine glass in his hand out of anger. The third prince. Why is he here? Did he come with the boss? But even if he was the boss, the otherworldly third prince shouldn't appear in such a remote place. He had just compared his father with Liao in front of the third prince. It was so humiliating. Chun Liang's face turned red. He scratched the back of his head embarrassedly. He wanted to bow to Beligaju, but he was afraid that there was something going on and his identity as a royal was exposed. He could only stand there helplessly and call out again. Boss. Helian Vivian said calmly, Master Liao bumped into me and wants me to compensate him. There shouldn't be any misunderstanding. Liao's intestines had already turned green. When he heard Helian Weiwei's words, he immediately took out his money pouch, bowed and said, I'm the one who should compensate young master. It's my fault. Seeing him like this, Chun Liang felt relieved. He didn't take his money and only asked him to take his things and leave so that the boss wouldn't be annoyed if he saw it. The man surnamed Liao nodded continuously. He listened to whatever Chun Liang said. When they were out of the tavern, he kicked the servant beside him and scolded, You're a piece of trash. Why didn't you remind me that he was Master Chen? I haven't seen Master Chen before. I don't know him at all. The servant's face was swollen. He felt so wronged. Master Liao sneered. It's my bad luck. I didn't expect a poor brat to know Master Chen. I can't let this go. You keep an eye on those 2 poor bastards. Once young Master Chen leaves, you'll teach them a good lesson. This isn't good. The servant reminded his master softly, Young master, they were beaten up. Master Chen will definitely not let this go. When the time comes, you'll be the unlucky one. Chapter 468.
Bam.
Master Liao lifted his leg again and kicked the servant half a meter away. What do you mean by, I'm the unlucky one? Who gave you the right to interfere with my business? Just do what I tell you to do. If you can't hide it, then kill them. They're just 2 country bumpkins. In Mr. Liao's mind, he had always thought that Helian Weiwei only met young Master Chen because of some luck. However, he had forgotten that Chun Liang had called Helian Vivian boss. At this moment, Chun Liang had rejected all social engagements and specially reserved a private room. He ordered a table full of dishes and asked the servants to serve them. He did not dare to sit down throughout the entire process as he was afraid that he would make a mistake. Firstly, it was because of the third prince's identity. Secondly, it was because the third prince himself had a very strong presence. The servant beside Chun Liang had never seen his fearless young master like this. His eyes darted between Helian Vivian and Beligaju, but he did not dare to say anything. Helian Vivian supported her chin with one hand and smiled casually. All right, Chun Liang, take a seat. Don't be so busy like a little bee. When we were in the academy, you mentioned that you would come to the provincial capital with your father after you leave the academy. I'm here to ask you to do something for me. What do you mean by help? Boss, if you need anything, just ask me. Chun Liang's answer was very firm. However, when he sat down, he chose the seat furthest away from Beligaju. Beligaju's slender fingers turned the teacup in his palm and looked at him with a faint smile. Chun Liang felt numb and immediately sat up straight. His posture was even more awkward than when he was in the academy. Hellion Vivian laughed and patted his shoulder. "All right, you don't have to be so restrained. He's my private advisor now. His surname is long. Private advisor?" Chun Liang could not control himself and shouted. Hellion Wei hummed in agreement and laughed. "I haven't had time to tell anyone that I've come to your provincial capital to be a county magistrate." If Chun Liang was surprised to see Hellion Vivian just now, he was surprised and shocked at the same time. His first reaction was, "Boss is here. All the corrupt officials in this place are dead meat. My father is definitely just a decoration." Most importantly, the third prince is the military advisor. No one would believe such a thing even if it was told. "No, I have to slow down." Chun Liang picked up the teacup and took a sip. He could not help but ask, "Boss, which county did you go to?" "Fuping." Hellion Wei only said 2 words. Chun Liang's expression froze. "What is it?"
Yes.
Hellion Wei smirked.
Why?
"You know Fuping too?" Chun Liang raised his head and gulped down a cup of water. He said, "Even my father can't get involved in Fuping. The water is very deep and no one dares to touch it. Now that you and the royal family are here, there should be a turning point for this matter." "It seems like you do know something." Hellion Vivian put down the teacup in her hand and gestured for him to continue. Chun Liang did not hide anything. "There is a lot of land in Fuping. The imperial court has already issued a memorial saying that they want to build it into a granary that mainly supplies food to the capital. For 2 years, they have allocated countless silvers. The retired emperor has his eyes on this place because it's suitable for farming. When the time comes, more food will be produced. This way, the people won't have to suffer every time there is a drought, and the national treasury will be empty." However, every year, the retired emperor did allocate the silvers, but there was no result. Not only was there no food, but the silvers were also gone, and the drought was getting worse. The retired emperor was very angry at that time. To put it bluntly, the silvers were embezzled layer by layer. The retired emperor knew very well, but this line was too deep. The retired emperor could not investigate it himself, so he ordered his subordinates to do so. There were only 2 possibilities. No matter how high the rank of the official came, they would either join in the evil or take charge. They would not really find the root of the problem. Take my father, for example. To put it nicely, he is the provincial governor of 3 provinces, so he is very prestigious. However, what is a provincial governor like him in the capital? Any young master in the capital city is more influential than my father. We don't know who we will offend, and we don't know if there is any point in doing this. Even if we find out that something fishy is going on, the higher-ups will try their best to cover it up. This is the most difficult part of Fuping County. Do you know who is behind Magistrate Liao?" The servant could not believe that the other party could remain so calm after hearing what the young master said. He could not help but take another look at Hellion Vivian. Chun Liang said in a deep voice, "He is one of the elders of the 4 influential families. Speaking of which, this elder has some connections with Boss. He is not just anyone, his surname is also Hellion. In the past, he and Old Master Hellion complimented each other and were very close friends." Hellion Vivian listened quietly without saying a word. Seeing her like this, Chun Liang continued, "His identity is special. The Hellion family is not stable yet, so he has the opportunity to do whatever he wants. Moreover, with the help of the other families, it is difficult for the retired emperor to arrest him without concrete evidence." Hellion Vivian spun the teacup. "What is the relationship between him and Magistrate Liao?" "He is the son-in-law who married into the Hellion family. He has been helping Elder Hellion to earn money in the officialdom. Boss, you have been in the capital all this time, so you probably don't know. These elders are very smart now. They keep a low profile in the capital because they are afraid that the royal family will catch them by the tail and punish them. Therefore, they simply put the method of earning money in the surrounding county. This way, not only would there be no restrictions on earning money, it would also not be easily discovered by others. After all, it is separated by several levels. Chun Liang said this in a serious manner. Hellion Vivian basically understood. She turned to look at Beligaju. Both of them vaguely had an idea in their minds. However, she came here mainly for another matter. Liangzi, ask your father to allocate the funds to me first. As the provincial governor of 3 provinces, he should have some cash flow on his hands. The drought in Fuping County needs to be solved. Our identities cannot be leaked yet, so we can only ask your father to come with us. You are here, so there's no need to ask him to come. If my father hears about it, he will definitely come here immediately. Chun Liang was telling the truth. His father was very loyal to the 3rd prince. Hellion Weiwei smiled and said, if your father hears this tone of yours, you'll have to suffer again. Let's not talk about this first. Boss, let me pick out a set of clothes for you and His Highness. What you are wearing. Chun Liang stopped talking. Hellion Vivian took a sip of tea. It will be the same, no matter what we wear. Don't bother. Okay. Chun Liang agreed with his mouth, but in his heart, he was thinking that it was degrading to let his boss and the 3rd prince wear such clothes. No wonder those people didn't think of their identities in that direction. That's what it means to be blind. Chapter 469. After the discussion, Chun Liang wanted to ask his father to come over immediately. However, his subordinate told him that the governor was busy with the provincial capital and could not find the time for now. Beligaju did not say anything. He only wrote a few simple words to the manservant and asked him to pass the letter to Governor Chen. His actions were casual. The manservant was stunned. He did not understand how an advisor from a county could be so daring to order him around. Young master, this master doesn't accept just anyone's letter. The manservant had his reasons for saying so. Ever since Governor Chen took office, many officials tried to get close to him by writing letters. If he accepted the letter, it would be troublesome in the future. Hellion Vivian curled her lips into a smile when she heard this. Don't worry, your master will definitely accept my advisor's letter. Beligaju brushed his clothes. His handsome side profile was full of mischief. Chun Liang could not help but swallow his saliva when he saw this. He did not expect his subordinate to say such a thing. He slapped the back of the manservant's head hard and said, "What are you nagging about? Go quickly. If you delay this letter, you'll see how my father will punish you." The manservant was not completely clueless. After hearing his young master's words, he more or less figured it out. Could it be that he had another identity? But what was his identity? Was he more important than his master? The manservant could not figure it out. However, he still had to listen to his young master, so he hurriedly sent the letter out. After the matter was settled, Hellion Vivian did not plan to stay for long. She planned to return home. Although Fuping County was not far away from the provincial capital, the management of the land was urgent. Moreover, the money mentioned by the imperial grandfather was coming soon. She had to stay in Fuping County to protect the money. When Chun Liang heard that Hellion Weiwei was leaving, he wanted to tag along as well. "Boss, just let me go with you. If anything happens to both of you within my father's jurisdiction, my father will definitely regret not coming to visit you today. Besides, I want to help the people of Fuping County too." Hellion Vivian thought for a moment and said, "You can follow us, but you have to be careful not to reveal our identity." "That's not a problem." Chun Liang had just finished making a promise. When he turned his head and saw Beligage's godlike face, he couldn't help but move to the side. If others saw his humble appearance, they would be very surprised. Everyone in the provincial capital knew that although young Master Chen didn't run amok in the village like other people, his temper was so bad that even his father couldn't do anything about it. Wherever he went, he would be praised by others. Now, Hellion Vivian smiled heartlessly and allowed Beligaju to reach out and hold her. She lowered her voice and said, "Is it fun to bully my little brother? When have I ever bullied him?" Beligaju brushed aside the strands of hair on her face, revealing his noble aura. Hellion Vivian pursed her lips. He's like a mouse seeing a cat when he sees you. That's his problem. Beligaju curved his thin lips into a faint smile. Chun Liang was speechless. Can you two be quieter when you're showing off your love? He heard everything. Okay. It was not a big deal to bring Chun Liang along. After all, they were in Fuping County and he was a provincial law enforcement officer. No matter how daring that Liao guy was, he wouldn't dare to do anything to the governor's second son. Hellion Vivian thought that Chun Liang might come in handy when Governor Chen couldn't make it. Chun Liang was so happy that he was blowing bubbles in his heart when she told him that. He had never been so valued by his boss before. In short, the few martial arts students who graduated from the academy always had an inhuman sense of admiration for Hellion Vivian. It was not only because she was the boss of profound heaven, but more importantly, everyone in the academy only took the young masters and ladies from the capital of the superior compound seriously and treated them with a lukewarm attitude. Hellion Vivian was the only one who didn't discriminate between them because of the different compounds. She would often tell them where to put some materials so that they could make lighter martial arts. Until now, Chun Liang would still look at his boss with starry eyes. He really didn't expect Hellion Vivian to be an official. It was so difficult to be an official. He had participated in more than 10 written examinations, but he had never passed. He didn't expect that his boss would become a county magistrate right after she graduated from the academy. She was so amazing. That was why people said that children were too naive. They didn't know that there was such a thing as taking the back door. Hellion Vivian patted Chun Liang's head. It wasn't easy for you to grow up. Governor Chen was the one who didn't have it easy. Beligaju added insult to injury, with an indifferent expression. Chun Liang was speechless. Why did he feel like his IQ was being mocked? It was almost dusk. The news of the road construction in Fuping County had spread throughout the provincial capital. Magistrate Liao was in the limelight. The officials from other counties wanted to meet Magistrate Liao at this time. Even if they couldn't get a share of the benefits, at least Magistrate Liao would definitely be promoted after the project was completed. It was better for them to build their relationship now than to travel thousands of miles to find him in the capital. As Old Master Yan, who had worked with Magistrate Liao for many years, there was no need to mention the benefits. Even Private Advisor Zhang would be looked up to wherever he went now. He was holding a Yixing clay teapot in his hand. When he saw Hellion Vivian and the rest walking into the yamen, he exclaimed, Lord Wei, who went to the provincial capital to beg for alms for the people, is finally back. I wonder how it went. Did you see the people from the provincial capital? Hellion Vivian glanced at him and smiled without saying anything. When Private Advisor Zhang saw that there was only one more person, he had an answer in his heart. If Lord Wei really saw the people, he should have received the money. It was impossible for him to come back in such a state. Someone should have sent him back. Furthermore, he did not receive a letter from the provincial capital saying that someone had met the person in the provincial capital. It seemed that Lord Wei had not even touched the surface. Private Advisor Zhang did not know that Hellion Vivian had not only received the money, but also brought along the beloved son of the person in the provincial capital. When he saw Hellion Vivian's situation, he thought that she had come back empty-handed. He said sarcastically, Sigh, this is how life is. Not everything can be done according to one's wishes. Some places can only be entered through connections. Lord Wei, you don't have to feel depressed about this. Private Advisor Zhang took a sip from the Yixing clay teapot as he spoke. His smug expression was enough to make anyone want to beat him up. Hellion Vivian replied slowly, Am I depressed? How can you tell? Private Advisor Zhang put down the teapot in his hand. When Chun Liang heard this, he was wondering where this old man came from and why he was so arrogant. Then, Private Advisor Zhang spoke again. Chapter 470. Magistrate Liao and Old Master Yan have gone to the provincial capital. I guess they are discussing with Lord Chen about the road construction. Oh, right, Lord Wei. You don't know who Lord Chen is, right? Who is he? Hellion Vivian asked him playfully. The newly appointed governor of the 3 provinces is someone who is transferred from the capital. You don't know how good Lord Li's relationship with Magistrate Liao is. In my opinion, there should be no problem with the road construction. When the time comes, as long as we behave ourselves and don't cause trouble for Magistrate Liao, we will definitely have a chance to be promoted. Private Advisor Zhang spoke as if he had seen how close Magistrate Liao and Governor Chen were. Chen Liang, on the other hand, cursed out loud. How could he not know who his father was close to? His father hated this Magistrate Liao the most. The only reason why he could sit down and talk to him was because they couldn't fall out with each other. Close? If they were close, how could this fellow not know that the person standing in front of him was Magistrate Liao's son? Helian Weiwei's lips curved into a smile. Chen Liang looked at her with tears in his eyes. Boss, don't stop me. Let me beat him to death. Helian Vivian patted his shoulder, telling him not to get agitated. How could he not be agitated? These people were simply slandering his father. Boss, tell the royal family that my father is definitely a good official. Although he is not very pure, there is a difference between him and these people. Helian Vivian wanted to laugh when she saw his big, watery eyes. However, this was not the right place. She could only look at Beligaju. Beligaju walked over and lowered his voice so that only Chen Liang could hear him. If you let her touch your shoulder again, do you believe that I will let you walk out of here on your back? Chen Liang immediately stood up straight. However, he felt wronged. Boss was only comforting him. Isn't the royal family being too possessive? Private Advisor Zhang was not aware of what was going on between the two of them. He assumed that they were merely 2 of Helian Weiwei's subordinates who were having a discussion. He continued proudly, Lord Wei, listen to me. I've been in Fuping County for a few years now. What you're doing now is a waste of effort. Why don't you follow Magistrate Liao and the others and do something practical? That way, you'll be promoted faster. According to what Private Advisor Zhang said, being an official is only for quick promotion. Can I work for the people? Helian Vivian asked him in return. Private Advisor Zhang's expression darkened. He put on a fake smile and said, that depends on what Lord Wei thinks. It's getting late, and I still have some matters to attend to. Lord Wei, you should rest early. Who knows, you might dream of someone offering you money to cure the drought. These words were brimming with sarcasm. It was simply saying that Helian Weiwei wanted to accomplish this task, but was simply a fool's dream. Private Advisor Zhang did not wait for Helian Vivian to reply. He left with his servant. Chen Liang was furious. This is the first time in my life that I've seen a private advisor who dares to challenge a county magistrate. There's no law in Fuping County. Boss, how can you hold it in? I don't have any status. It's normal for me to encounter such a situation. Helian Vivian asked the Yamen runners to serve her tea. After they left, she continued, I'll deal with these people sooner or later. What's the fun in dealing with one? It's more interesting to deal with them all at once. Chen Liang was still angry at first. However, when he heard Helian Vivian's words, his blood boiled. He thought about his boss's methods in the past. Every single one of them was amazing. What was she planning to do this time? Boss, when do you plan to take action? Call me along. These scourges only have their own career and money in their eyes. They don't deserve to speak for the people. Helian Vivian knew that this child was honest. She rubbed her ring with her finger. There was a cold light in her eyes. Don't be anxious. They should be the ones who are anxious now. Magistrate Liao and Old Master Yan were indeed anxious. They were about to receive the money, but the person who delivered the money said that they had to go through the county magistrate of Fuping County. This was a rule set by the higher-ups. Governor Chen was also very cunning. He was always evading the question and would not reveal any information about what was really important. This made Magistrate Liao a little angry. As soon as he returned to Fuping County, he asked someone to summon Helian Vivian. He said that it was a banquet, but in front of the county magistrates, he reminded them without naming them. He said that some people should consider the big picture and not only think about trivial matters. The most important thing for Fuping County and the surrounding counties and villages was to build roads. Only with roads could the people become rich. Don't worry, I won't monopolize everything. If the road construction is done well, the people will be happy, and so will the imperial court. We don't have to do those messy things anymore. Just put away your thoughts. Hellion Vivian listened as if she did not hear him. She smiled faintly and turned the teacup in her hand. Magistrate Liao looked at her sideways. Lord Wei, tell me your thoughts. My thoughts? Hellion Vivian drank her tea calmly. I've told Magistrate Liao the last time that the second drought is coming. I'm only thinking about how to deal with it now. Magistrate Liao said sarcastically, Lord Wei is really a good official who brings benefits to the people. However, Lord Wei should be more open-minded sometimes. Perhaps no one wants to do anything to you. The other officials laughed. Magistrate Liao was hinting that Hellion Vivian thought too highly of herself. In their eyes, she was not worth mentioning at all. Hellion Wei narrowed her eyes as the corners of her mouth curved up. Then let's wait and see. When the crowd heard this, they laughed wantonly again. They had also heard about this newly appointed county magistrate of Fuping County. Not only did she have no background, but she also recklessly went to the provincial capital. In the end, she came back dejected and defeated without even seeing anyone. They wondered how confident she was to dare to go against Magistrate Liao in such a situation. She even thought that she could change the situation in Fuping County with her own strength. What a country bumpkin. She was simply courting death. However, they did not know that at this moment, the governor of the 3 provinces, Lord Chen, who had just returned to the provincial capital, received a very important letter. Old Master, you're finally back. The servant stood at the door and anxiously handed the letter to Lord Chen. This is from the private advisor of the young master's friend. He asked me to pass this to you. The private advisor of the young master's friend? Lord Chen thought about how messy the relationship was as he opened the paper. There were only a few words on the paper, but they were written in bold and vigorous calligraphy. However, these were not important. What was important was the signature at the bottom of the paper. Chapter 471. Why would he come here? Governor Chen's expression changed in an instant. He felt as if he was struck by lightning. The servant watched his master's expression change from tiredness to intense disbelief. Before he could react, his master grabbed his sleeve tightly. Where's the person who wrote the letter now? I'm not sure. The servant did not understand why his master, who had always been as calm as a mountain, would suddenly become so agitated. He stuttered, but I heard that he was the private advisor of Fuping County Magistrate. He should have returned to Fuping County by now. Governor Chen shook his head with a bitter smile. He's not a private advisor, he's... Governor Chen paused intentionally as if he had thought of something. He was very regretful. Sigh. Why didn't I receive this letter earlier? Not a private advisor? Then what is it? Xiao Feng asked blankly. Governor Chen did not know what to do with these people around his beloved son. Each one of them was dumber than the other. Wait a minute. Where's the young master? Governor Chen asked. Xiao Feng touched his head. He should have gone to Fuping County with a private advisor. Governor Chen smiled when he heard that. Liangzi has finally done something that a human should do this time. Quickly prepare a carriage for me. I'm going to Fuping County now. But master, it's going to be dark soon. It's not safe to travel at night in this remote village. Xiao Feng was thinking about what could be more important than his master's safety. However, Governor Chen was very insistent. Go quickly. If you're too slow, I'll punish you. After listening to these words, Xiao Feng became more and more curious about the 2 people from Fuping County. Logically speaking, they were just a lowly county magistrate and a private advisor. How did the young master and the master become so different from their usual selves? Unless... Xiao Feng suddenly came to a realization, and his eyes started to shake. Unless those 2 people had some kind of extraordinary identity, to be able to hide so deeply, who exactly was it? The only people who were older than his master were those in the capital city. Xiao Feng did not dare to think further. He suddenly shuddered. The sky outside darkened even more. The atmosphere in the restaurant had obviously changed. Many people were intentionally or unintentionally excluding Hellion Vivian. Private Advisor Zhang was so arrogant now that he had the upper hand. Old Master Yan had even announced that he would beat anyone who dared to stop him from capturing the maidservants in the future. That being said, no one dared to approach Dexiong when he was staying with the Liu family. However, before this wave could subside, a new wave rose from that wave. Magistrate Liao was naturally angry when Hellion Vivian refused to sign the money. This Wei person was really giving him a headache, but he couldn't kill her directly. After all, assassinating an official of the imperial court was punishable by death. However, she was blocking his way of making money. It was annoying to see her like this. If he didn't teach her an unforgettable lesson, he wouldn't be able to swallow his anger. Private Advisor Zhang observed his expression and said in a low voice, "Don't worry, Lord Liao. The people from the provincial capital will be here tomorrow. When they arrive, I'll arrange a good show and let that Wei person suffer a great loss. He's just a newcomer. He doesn't know anything about Fuping County, let alone the villagers of Fuping County. When the time comes, he'll know what it means to refuse a toast. He'll suffer a forfeit." After Magistrate Liao listened to Private Advisor Zhang's plan, a smile finally appeared on his face. He clinked the wine cup in his hand with Private Advisor Zhang's and reminded him and Old Master Yan to sell the grain in the warehouse as soon as possible. Magistrate Liao had a good plan. He would not return to Fuping County in the future. Since Gao Sheng had left this time, he would take as much as he could. Wouldn't it be foolish to leave a pile of disaster relief food for the next greedy person? He might as well take all the food and use it to bribe the higher-ups when he arrived at the capital city. Unlike them, Hellion Vivian only had one thing on her mind, which was to fight a drought. She asked a few shadow guards to do some reconnaissance to confirm the land trend of Fuping County. Then, she went to the river to take a look. Chun Liang did not understand. "Boss, there's water here, but it's too far away from the fields. It'll tire the villagers out if they have to come here to fetch water. If they look like me and Dexiong, it'll be easy. Each of us can carry 4 buckets. I can carry 10 buckets. Dexiong chuckled. "I'm strong, so I can carry more." In response, Little Bald Head, who appeared behind the crowd, pouted with a meat bun in his mouth arrogantly. "Only 10 buckets. Isn't 10 buckets a lot?" Chun Liang's first reaction was to jump up. He was dumbfounded when he turned around to take a look. Why was youngest uncle here? Little Bald had glanced at his stunned expression in an overbearing manner. He then turned to his third brother and began to complain. "Third brother, Grandpa's son is getting more and more naggy. I wanted to go out to look for you, but he didn't allow me to. He even forbade me from eating the red-crowned cranes in the backyard. I couldn't stand this kind of oppression, so I sneaked out." Chun Liang was speechless. Wait a minute, are red-crowned cranes meant to be eaten? Different from the other reactions, Bailey Jiaju's expression was very indifferent. He only glanced at the person behind Little Bald Head and said in an indifferent tone, "The matter of 7th young master coming out. Is there anyone who stayed behind to tell grandfather?" "Master. And she and the rest have already informed the old master. The old master is very angry, but he specially instructed his subordinates to tell you to take good care of the young master." And Ing was dressed in black, and his whereabouts were a mystery. If it wasn't for Beligaju, he wouldn't have shown himself at all. Even if he did show up, he deliberately changed the way he addressed him. Beligaju nodded indifferently and said, "You may leave." And Ing respectfully knelt on one knee and disappeared in front of the crowd in a flash.
"Come here."
Beligaju's voice was cold as he beckoned with his finger. Little Bald Head took a bite of the meat bun and patted the dust on his body that had been on the road for the past few days. Only then did he approach Beligaju and said with a dignified expression, "Third brother, stay here and break through these rocks blocking the way." Beligaju said slowly, "You like to play? After you're done, I'll feed you meat. Fight, break." Chun Liang and Dexiong looked at each other, then simultaneously looked at the small hill in front of them. They couldn't believe it. Was this something a person could break through? Third brother, other than meat, are there any prawns? I've been wanting to eat things in the water recently. I didn't even get to eat the goldfish last time. Little Bald Head said as he raised his soft little fist and punched forward. There was a rumbling sound. The sound was too fast. Before Chun Liang and Xiong could react, a hole appeared on the small hill. Xiong looked at Chun Liang with watery eyes. His head was full of stone dust, and his expression was very messy. Chapter 472. This is too much for my pride. I can't even compare to a child. Chun Liang comforted him. Little martial uncle has always been like this. You'll get used to it. He had heard a lot of rumors when he was in the academy. As expected, little martial uncle, who could beat up all the teachers in the academy, was not someone to be trifled with. Helian Weiwei was looking at the surrounding mountains, thinking about the obstacle of the hillside. When she heard the noise, she walked over to take a look and saw little Seven holding a meat bun in his mouth, clenching his little fist and hitting the hillside repeatedly. After a total of 5 hits, the road was cleared. His little handsome face was very calm. Needless to say, it was obvious whose idea this was. Helian Weiwei glanced sideways at Bailey Jiaju and asked with a smile, "Were you the one who called little Seven over?" "He can't stay at home." Baligaju took out a handkerchief to wipe the little one's hand and said, "It's only a matter of time before he comes out." In other words, everything was going according to his plan. Helian Weiwei coughed softly. If Magistrate Liao and the others knew that the private advisor whom they had always looked down upon was actually so sinister and black-bellied, would they all burst into tears? However, now that the road is cleared, we can dig the soil and bury the pipes to draw the water. Helian Vivian was in a better mood now that she had finally gotten rid of one of her worries. Father Lu was not so optimistic. "Lord Wei, the position of the river is lower than that of the fields. It's impossible to bury the pipes to draw the water. Everyone knows that water flows to the lower places. How can it flow to the higher places? If it was as simple as burying the pipes to draw the water, Fuping County would not have been in a drought for 3 years. Even if the officials could not think of this method, they had done farm work all year round. Father Lu said that because he was familiar with the terrain of Fuping County. "Don't worry, Father Lu. I'll solve all these problems." Helian Vivian did not explain further. After all, the ancient people would not understand a water pump with a pneumatic device, so she only mentioned it briefly. If it was someone else who said this, Father Lu would definitely think it was a fantasy, but since it was Helian Vivian who said it, he felt that it was reliable. However, Lord Wei, you better be careful. The people from the provincial capital will arrive tomorrow. They are here to repair the roads. When I was plowing the fields just now, I saw Private Advisor Zhang come to the fields and talk to the villagers about how to repair the roads. Old Man Lu paused for a moment before continuing. I see that quite a few of the youngsters have already believed it. They are thinking of jointly petitioning to ask why Lord Wei didn't allow them to build the road. Is it because he can't bear to part with the funds and wants to swallow the money? When Chun Liang heard this, his eyes widened. How could our boss lack money? What were the commoners thinking? There were already 2 roads in Fuping County, and it would be a waste to build another one. Moreover, they might even reap all the benefits from the construction. Wasn't the most important thing now to solve the drought? Why are those people so suspicious of boss after hearing a few words from others? Old Man Lu also felt embarrassed. He had seen what Lord Wei had done for the past 2 days. He shouldn't have been slandered like this. That private advisor Zhang was shameless to a certain extent. Some people who didn't know better would be fooled by him and think that they could change Fuping County's current situation by repairing the roads. Although Old Man Lu was just a farmer, he was not completely clueless. He thought for a while and looked at Helian Vivian. Lord Wei, do you want to go to the higher-ups and ask them? If you really do come tomorrow, you won't be able to explain yourself clearly. There's nothing that can't be explained clearly, Helian Vivian smiled. A straight foot is not afraid of a crooked shoe. Old Man Lu shook his head. Lord Wei, You are still young and don't know the ways of the world. There are some things that can be said to be black, even if you are innocent. You are right, old man Lu. Beligaju naturally continued the conversation. He curled his lips into a smile, so handsome that even the heavens and earth seemed to lose their beauty. He wiped Hellion Vivian's hand with a handkerchief. There was a hint of mischief in his deep eyes. You have played enough. From now on, I, the private advisor, will be in charge of Fuping County's official affairs. You only need to be in charge of diverting water and irrigating the fields. Upon hearing this, the shadow guards who were standing in the dark looked at each other. They thought to themselves, His Highness finally decided to do it himself. Sigh, this group of people is really too much. Of all people to ostracize, why did they have to ostracize the princess? They will definitely be tortured to death. Definitely. Hellion Vivian looked at Beligaju's side profile and felt that someone was going to be in trouble. She silently looked at the little bald head who was standing beside her. Little Seventh Prince's expression was very serious. Third brother, you must take me with you when you beat people up. After that, you can treat me to meat. Hellion Vivian was speechless. I haven't settled the matter of you sneaking out. Beligaju looked at the little one condescendingly and said clearly, let's have a good talk after dinner. Little Seventh Prince did not want to talk to his third brother at all. Every time they talked, he would be forced to dance naked. He could not embarrass himself outside the palace. At the thought of this, Little Bald had grabbed his trousers and ran to Hellion Vivian with a look that said, Third sister-in-law, please protect me. Hellion Vivian bent down and pinched the child's face. What do you want to eat for dinner? I have already asked around before coming here. Fuping County's jujubes are the best. Little Bald had said very seriously. The shadow guards who followed him could not help but nod. They could testify that the little master was most concerned about the local specialties throughout the journey. Hellion Vivian could not help but laugh. She said, Jujubes can't be eaten as rice. Let's have some marinated beef, your favorite.
Okay.
Little Seventh Prince had never been a picky eater. He was happy as long as he was given food. He followed behind Hellion Vivian in a dignified manner. Chun Liang and Xiong were tactful enough to not accompany them. One went to the Lu family to continue protecting Lu Yin, while the other stayed in the field to keep an eye on the situation. Seeing that the night was getting darker, the two adults and one child finished their dinner and wanted to walk to digest the food. The little one was very restrained in front of his third brother. He tugged on Beligaju's sleeve and tried his best to walk with his short legs. Hellion Vivian was mesmerized by his cuteness. She turned to look at him and asked, Are you tired? I'm not tired. Little Seventh Prince raised his head and looked at his third brother, then at Hellion Vivian. He said, Third sister-in-law, if you are tired, you can let third brother carry you. There are no outsiders here. You can carry as much as you want. When did I say that? Before Hellion Vivian could finish her sentence, Beligaju carried her in his arms. From where Hellion Vivian was standing, she could only see the slight smile on the man's thin lips. Chapter 473. So you want me to hug you? A deep, devilish voice rang beside her ear. Hellion Wei Wei wanted to avoid him, but he hugged her even tighter with his big hands. Beligaju's lips curled into a charming smile with a hint of mischief. Next time you want me to hug you, you can ask me directly. I'm not an unreasonable person. I'll agree to your request. She had never seen such a cunning person who pretended to be innocent after taking advantage of her. Hellion Wei Wei raised her eyes and glanced at him. She only felt that his handsome face was somewhat unreal. She knew that she was no match for him. In the end, she simply buried her head in the man's chest and inhaled the pleasant smell of sandalwood. Her heart felt as if it was filled with something sour, yet incomparably sweet. However, when they reached the end of the alley, Beligaju suddenly stopped in his tracks. Shao Qi stopped eating the meat bun. He looked up with his big eyes and stared at the night sky in the alley. In the dark, a group of people held wooden sticks and stared at Beligaju murderously. During the day, they received an order from their young master to kill him if it was inconvenient for them to beat him up. Who knew that young Master Chin would follow these two country bumpkins all the way back to Fuping County, making it inconvenient for them to kill him. Finally, they were alone, and there was a child beside them. If they did not kill him now, when were they going to kill him? Kill him, the leader of the men in black ordered. With a twist of the stick, it immediately turned into a long knife and chopped towards Bailey Jiaju's head. How dare you provoke our young master? You must be tired of living. The man who swung the knife thought that his opponent would definitely die. Who would have thought? He had pounced on empty air. The person in front of him disappeared just like that. The leader of the men in black turned around in disbelief and saw that the person who was supposed to be standing in front of him was standing behind him. The man stood tall and straight with the person in his arms. However, his hair was not messed up in the slightest. He was noble and elegant like a god who had just walked out of the moon. His eyes were so deep and cold that anyone who saw them couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts at first. The man in black was a little scared. Later, when he thought of their background, he couldn't help but snort. It was just a bluff. They made it seem like they were very powerful. He sneered and exchanged glances with the person behind Beligaju, signaling him to prepare for a sneak attack. His face was still full of disdain as he said, "If I were you, I would apologize to my young master right now. Why didn't you ask around about my young master's influence in Fuping County? He's just a small county magistrate. Do you think you can win?" "Oh, a little county magistrate?" Beligaju walked towards him with a faint smile. The sneak attacker saw that the opportunity was right and raised the knife to stab him in the back. At that moment, the black-clothed leader only saw a black shadow flash before his eyes, and the knife pierced right into his left arm. Beligaju, who was supposed to be stabbed to death, stood there unscathed. His aura did not diminish at all. The pain swept over him like a violent storm. The man in black was in so much pain that he immediately squatted on the ground. Looking at the unscathed Beligaju, other than fear surging out from the depths of his heart, there was only fear. Who the hell was this guy? His martial chi. I can't even feel it, let alone predict how powerful he is. Even if all of them joined forces, they might not be able to defeat him. At the thought of this, the man in black's face turned pale. He supported himself on the ground with one hand and looked at Beligaju, who was slowly walking towards him. His eyes were filled with panic. Stop. Someone wanted to pull the little one over, but found that he couldn't even move a child. So, he simply pulled out a dagger and pressed it against the little one's neck. If you take another step forward, I'll kill him. Indeed, Bailey Jiaju also stopped in his tracks. However, the gaze he used to look at that person was filled with obvious ridicule. With a smile that was not a smile, his good-looking thin lips slightly opened. Idiot. These two simple words successfully enraged the man holding the dagger. You don't believe that I'll do it, right? I'll cut him now and show you. As he spoke, the man wanted to raise the dagger. Unexpectedly, as soon as he raised his hand, he was punched hard in the stomach.
Bang.
That person was sent flying high into the air before crashing heavily onto the ground.
Puff.
Blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. The man in black couldn't believe his eyes. What did he just see? A 4-year-old child had actually sent his most powerful subordinate flying. In an instant, all the men in black's expressions changed. Their first reaction was to escape. But it was all too late. No one who provoked the royal family could escape unscathed. After a series of crackling sounds were heard, Bailey Jiaju leisurely wiped his hands. His left foot stepped on the back of the black-clothed leader's hand. Standing against the light, his expression couldn't be seen clearly, but that pair of long and narrow eyes overflowed with the color of blood. Hellion Vivian walked forward and touched his cold fingers. Beligaju then withdrew his hostility and looked back at her. What's wrong? It's cold. Hellion Vivian smiled faintly and held his hand, interlocking their fingers. Then, she instructed the little one, Little Seven, I'll leave these people to you. Let them stand in a line and send them to the Yamen prison. They can be used in the future. Assassinating an official of the imperial court is a crime that Lord Liao can't bear even if he wants to. The little one hummed in agreement and used his foot to pick up a wooden stick. Whoever stood in the wrong place would be in a daze for a long time without any nonsense. The black-clothed leader, whose face was bruised and swollen, dragged his aching arm and vaguely realized that something seemed to have gone wrong. The other party was too different from what they had imagined. Did he really have no background with such good skills? Just as the leader in black was puzzled, Master Liao arrived at Fuping County. He began to complain when he saw Magistrate Liao. He didn't mention a word about how he sent people to trouble Hellion Vivian. Father, you don't know how arrogant the new county magistrate is. I was having a meal in the provincial capital, but he went to visit me. Not only did he hurt me, but he also asked me to compensate him with a lot of silver. Magistrate Liao had always wanted to mess with Hellion Vivian. Now that he heard his son's words, the gloominess in his eyes deepened. Doesn't he know who you are? I told him my name and father on the spot, but that person didn't take my father seriously at all. He made me lose face in the provincial capital. Magistrate Liao clenched the teacup in his hand tighter as he listened. This way, guy, I'll skin him alive tomorrow. Chapter 474. Father, you must make sure that he dies without a burial place. Young Master Liao was so focused on watching his enemy make a fool of himself that he forgot to tell Magistrate Liao that Hellion Vivian and Chen Liang knew each other. Magistrate Liao, who knew nothing, did not know that while he was thinking of ways to get rid of the person in front of him, his son had already created a huge mess for him behind his back. On the other hand, Private Advisor Zhang came to show his loyalty as soon as he heard that young Master Liao was here with money. Magistrate Liao could not be bothered to look at his fawning face. He only asked, "What did that way fellow do today?" "I heard that the village is abuzz with news. It's all because of that way fellow who did something stupid again." Private Advisor Zhang was in high spirits as he spoke. His face was filled with disdain as he gloated. This person is just too inexperienced. He didn't even take a look at the terrain of Fuping County before thinking of burying a pipe to divert water. What a fool's dream. Magistrate Liao laughed when he heard this. Planting pipes to divert water? Everyone knows that the terrain of the river is lower than the farmland. The water will not flow to higher places. Lord Wei must have lost his mind because of our pressure. I don't think that Wei fellow is that kind. He must have gone crazy from wanting to achieve good results. That's why he came up with such a trick. Private Advisor Zhang chuckled. That's even better. When the people from the provincial capital arrive tomorrow, let's see how that Wei fellow is going to deal with this. Magistrate Liao did not speak anymore. He lowered his head and took a sip of tea. However, the smile on his face was extremely vicious. In the officialdom, this was the best way to get rid of someone completely. Only the people would believe the words of the people. Don't blame him for being ruthless. That way fellow should be blamed for thinking too highly of himself. He did not listen to anyone and deserved to die without a burial place. Night fell at the county magistrate's yamen. Bailey Jiaju looked at the letter sent by the shadow guards and the corners of his mouth curved into an arc. This is not enough. Drag the one in the capital down as well.
Yes.
The shadow guard lowered his eyes respectfully, but he couldn't help but be shocked by his master's means. No one could have imagined that even though Fuping was far away, the situation in the capital city was still under His Highness' control. Fuping's scheme was spreading like wildfire throughout the province, but none of the people involved were aware of the danger. The shadow guard turned back to take a look at his master, only to see Baligaju's slender and transparent fingers holding a black chess piece. With a crisp sound, it landed on the jade chessboard. Sitting behind the scenes and giving pointers to the world was probably referring to this scene. Hellion Vivian was smoking her hair. When Baligaju finished his work and walked in, she was already a little sleepy. Her eyes were closed, and her eyelashes were very long. Beligaju lowered his eyes and looked at her for a while. Then he bent down, picked her up, and placed her on the bed. When he let go of her, Hellion Vivian woke up. Beligaju kissed the corner of her eyes and said with a unique magnetic voice, "It's okay. Go back to sleep." Hellion Vivian was still tied up, so when she heard his words, she closed her eyes again. Under the moonlight, Beligaju held her in his arms. His figure was slender, and his black hair was scattered around him. He was indescribably gentle. The next day, when Hellion Vivian woke up, she saw that noble and flawless face. She wanted to move, but he reached out and pressed her back. Sleep for a while more. Beligaju closed his eyes, and his voice was hoarse, which was not usually there. Hellion Vivian looked outside and said, "No, I have to get up and check on my water pump. With the shadow guards around, no one will dare to come near." Bailey Jiaju knew that this little thing that he was raising would sometimes be restless, so he directly pressed down on her claws and slid his left hand under her clothes. Hellion Vivian's body went soft, and she fell back on his chest. Her ears were a little red, and she bit her thin lips. Her voice was a little shaky. "Not here." After all, the Yamen was an important place to handle cases. Someone could come in at any time. Moreover, with her current identity, it was inevitable that someone would come to look for her early in the morning. Beligaju also knew that this place was not right, so he did not really want to do anything to her. After hugging her back, he fell into a light sleep again. The two of them rested for less than half an hour before a servant knocked on the door. "Lord Wei, Lord Wei." Hellion Vivian tidied up her clothes, put on a coat, and opened the door. "What's the matter? Why are you in such a hurry?" The servant hurriedly said, "The people from the provincial capital are here." Magistrate Liao asked all the county magistrates to get up early and gather at Yen Manor. "Go to Yen Manor?" Hellion Vivian's fingers that were tying the coat paused, and the corner of her mouth lifted. "I know. You can leave first." The servant lowered his eyes and said yes. He vaguely saw the figure of Private Advisor Long in the room and couldn't help muttering, "This Private Advisor Long's relationship with Lord Wei is really good." He came to wait in Lord Wei's room so early in the morning. Beligaju listened calmly. He reached out his hand from behind and took over the work of tying the coat from Hellion Vivian as a qualified private advisor. "This kind of thing should be done by me." The two of them were facing the bronze mirror, and their breaths were right beside her ears. Hellion Vivian only felt numb everywhere, and she couldn't move. If she touched anything, it would definitely delay time. His Highness finally finished tying her coat, and there was a deep smile on his thin lips. "Look at your expression. It's as if you're upset. Why didn't you continue?" Hellion Vivian. Since when was she upset? His Highness's imagination was too strong, and they were never on the same wavelength. "I'll make it up to you when we return to the palace." Beligaju leaned over and kissed her ear, and the tip of his tongue brushed over it intentionally. Hellion Vivian suddenly trembled, and her whole body shrank into his arms like a shrimp that had been electrocuted. Bailey Jiaju curled his lips playfully. "Throw yourself into my arms?" Hellion Weiwei looked at his mischievous smile, and her heart trembled. The sweetness in her heart swelled even more. Perhaps this was the feeling of liking someone more and more. Even though she knew that this person was shameless to the point of being arrogant, as long as she saw that pair of smiling eyes, she would also smile along with him. After breakfast, several officials from the provincial capital walked into Yen Manor, accompanied by the county magistrates. Magistrate Liao seemed to be showing off his network of connections. Along the way, he was talking and laughing with the officials from the provincial capital. This made the people who supported the road construction see a lot of hope, and they started to talk about it all at once. Lu Rin and Old Man Lu listened attentively, and their eyes fell on Hellion Vivian from afar, and they couldn't help but worry. Chapter 475. Hellion Vivian's expression did not change at all. She acted as if she did not see the friendly atmosphere between Magistrate Liao and the people from the provincial capital. It was as if she did not care who came. She was neither happy nor sad. Private Advisor Zhang pursed his lips and sneered in disdain. What a pretentious person. In his opinion, Wei Liao was really stupid. The people from the provincial capital were here, but he was still putting on airs. He did not even know how to liven up the atmosphere. He deserved it. Hellion Vivian did not put on airs, but she did not curry favor with the higher-ups like the other county magistrates. She was neither servile nor overbearing, but she did not lose her manners. As soon as the officials from the provincial capital sat down, they said straightforwardly, "The imperial court has sent us the funds. We heard that the roads in Fuping County are going to be built. How do you plan to do it?" "We'll do it the same way we did in the past." Magistrate Liao held his teacup and said with a smile, "It's best to build the roads directly into the village. It will save the people the trouble of entering the city." The officials nodded and said, "Fuping County is a big place and has a lot of resources. It's a good thing to build a few more roads. If the people can travel more comfortably, it will be a good thing." They then asked the county magistrates, "What about you? Do you have any opinions?" How could the county magistrates have any opinions? Of course. All of them agreed that the roads were good. They spoke as if they wanted to offend Magistrate Liao. In fact, Hellion Vivian, who had the most right to speak, was drinking her tea with a calm expression from the beginning to the end. After they finished talking, she put down the teacup in her hand and said with a clear voice, "I don't think the roads are a good thing." Magistrate Liao's smiling face suddenly darkened. He turned his head and looked at Hellion Vivian. The officials from the provincial capital looked at each other and frowned. "Tell us your reason." "There are already 2 roads in Fuping County that lead out of the village. Both of them lead directly to the provincial capital. There's no need to build another road." Hellion Vivian's voice was calm, but her words hit the nail on the head. Magistrate Liao laughed softly and said, "Lord Wei, you've just entered the officialdom. You don't understand what the roads mean to the people. Where are the roads not being repaired now? If we want the people to become wealthy, we have to be in line with the provincial capital. Otherwise, Fuping County will face poverty and backwardness. We made this decision after comprehensive consideration." Then I would like to ask, when Lord Liao made this decision, did you ever consider that there are fields everywhere in Fuping County? If you want to build roads, you have to occupy the fields. The people rely on the fields to make a living. Without the fields, what are they going to eat? Hellion Vivian asked slowly. Magistrate Liao's eyes darkened. Then he laughed out loud. "Lord Wei, that's a good question. In the beginning, we were also worried about this problem. After that, we thought about it again. We have to pay for everything we do. When the road is repaired and it's time for the harvest, the people will be able to earn back all the losses. If it really doesn't work, we still have disaster relief food in the warehouse. We can use it when the time comes." "Lord Liao, you seem to have forgotten that 2 days ago, you gave the only relief food in the warehouse to Private Advisor Zhang and asked him to sell it. How are you going to distribute it to the people when they are in trouble?" Hellion Vivian put down the teacup in her hand and went straight to the point. Magistrate Liao laughed coldly when he heard that. "Lord Wei, are you saying that you don't agree with the road being repaired? Have you ever thought about what the people of Fuping County are missing out on because of your hasty decision?" As if in response to Magistrate Liao's words, a commotion suddenly came from afar. "We want to see Lord Wei. We want to see Lord Wei." Naturally, such a commotion was heard. A few officials from the provincial capital looked at each other and asked the people below with suspicion, "What's going on outside?" "My lords, a few farmers are making a ruckus. They want to see Lord Wei. It seems like they want to question him about something." This was Private Advisor Zhang's reply. The expression on his face made everyone want to know what was going on. Hellion Vivian watched the exchange of glances between him and Magistrate Liao. Her slender fingers tapped on the table, but she did not say anything. One of the officials from the provincial capital spoke. "Let the villagers in. We want to hear what the people want to ask Lord Wei."
"Yes."
Private Advisor Zhang lowered his head and accepted the order. A crafty smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. After a while, he walked in with a few farmers. It was obvious that the people had never seen so many officials before. Their expressions were somewhat fearful. Private Advisor Zhang lowered his voice and spoke in a friendly manner that he had never shown before. Don't be afraid. Just say whatever you want to say. All of them are from the provincial capital. They will definitely stand up for us. After hearing this, someone mustered up the courage to shout, I want to see Lord Wei. Where is the new Fuping County Magistrate? The officials from the provincial capital saw that the farmers were so emotional. When they looked at Hellion Vivian again, they had a subtle and probing look. Magistrate Liao lowered his head and took a sip of tea. However, he could not hide the crafty smile at the corner of his mouth. Hellion Vivian was unexpectedly calm. She stood up calmly and said in a calm voice, I am the new Fuping County Magistrate. You are the corrupt official who is stopping us from getting rich? Before Hellion Vivian could finish her sentence, the young man shouted loudly, Why didn't you ask Magistrate Liao to build the road? You said that it was for the good of the people by cutting off our opportunity to connect to the provincial capital. However, you are using money to build pipes to divert water. Everyone knows that the water level of the river in Fuping County is lower than the farmland. It is impossible to use this method to irrigate the farmland. It is fine if you are the one who did it, but why did you have to invest the funds for building the road to prevent us from escaping poverty and becoming rich? Wei, you are the most shameless, corrupt official I have ever seen. After being scolded, Hellion Wei did not get angry. Instead, she asked in a calm and unsteady voice, Only a few of us know about the Imperial Court's allocation of funds. Big brother, where did you hear the news? The man looked at Private Advisor Zhang unconsciously. Private Advisor Zhang coughed loudly. The man said loudly, Why do you care where I heard it from? You are now trying to stop the road from being built because of your own selfish desires. This is the truth. Lord Wei, you really should give us a proper explanation on this issue. The officials from the provincial capital heard the farmer's words and turned to look at Hellion Vivian. Their faces were stern, which was not seen earlier. The Imperial Court will never tolerate and nurture a traitor. They will use a huge amount of salary to support a corrupt official who is harming the people. Chapter 476. In the face of such accusations, Hellion Vivian was very calm. She did not fly into a rage like Magistrate Liao had expected. Instead, she said slowly, The lords are right. Since the villagers have asked, why don't we have a good talk? As she spoke, she looked at the farmers. How can the villagers be so sure that they can make a fortune by fixing the road? The farmers looked at each other and could not help but look at Private Advisor Zhang. Hellion Vivian smiled. The villagers are always looking at Private Advisor Zhang because you have a good idea? I'll have to ask you then. The second drought after autumn is coming in 7 days. Once the drought comes, there will be no harvest in the fields. If there is no harvest, there will be no food to export. Without export, how can we make a fortune? What's the point of fixing the road? Private Advisor Zhang was at a loss for words after being bombarded by Hellion Vivian's questions. He opened his mouth to explain but realized that he could not say anything. It seems that Private Advisor Zhang doesn't know either. Hellion Vivian continued smiling. Then I'm puzzled. How can the villagers be so sure about something that no lord can guarantee? The ancient times were different from the modern times. The villagers were afraid when they met the officials. Now that Hellion Vivian had mentioned it, they were afraid. The farmers were afraid that they would be condemned. They stammered, Yes, it was Private Advisor Zhang who promised us. He said that as long as the road is fixed, we can make a fortune. As soon as they said that, the officials from the provincial capital fell silent. It was obvious that Private Advisor Zhang had made up some rumors. Moreover, the most urgent problem in Fuping County was not fixing the road, but the worrisome drought. However, Private Advisor Zhang did not even mention it. Instead, he kept talking about fixing the road if the time came and there was no harvest due to the drought. everyone in Fuping County would have to flee. How could they make any money? When the time came, not only would the imperial court blame them, the retired emperor might even punish them for it. Initially, they came here to make some money. However, they were willing to take the money if it was not dangerous. If it was too much, no one wanted to bear the consequences. Private Advisor Zhang, "You're in the wrong this time," said an official. Hearing this, the rest of the people looked at Private Advisor Zhang. Private Advisor Zhang did not expect this to happen. He tried his best to maintain the stiff smile on his face. "I'm just worried about the people." However, now that things had come to this, no one would believe him anymore. Even the commoners who were brought in by him began to understand what was going on. They glared at Private Advisor Zhang fiercely. Among them, an old man who was more knowledgeable said, "Are you using us?"
Speak.
Private Advisor Zhang's expression darkened. "My fellow countrymen, please don't make false accusations. All of you came here willingly. How can you say that I'm using you? I didn't say anything." Magistrate Liao listened to his useless explanation and cursed him for being an idiot in his heart. His expression darkened. Basically, everyone knew that Private Advisor Zhang was his man. Private Advisor Zhang's mistake was equivalent to a slap to his face. This Wei guy knew about it, but he still played such a trick on him. "Good, very good." Magistrate Liao rolled his eyes and chuckled. "Let's put the matter of road construction aside for now. Lord Wei, I think you have misunderstood the meaning of the questions that the villagers asked you. What they want to know is, why did you spend so much money to bury pipes and divert water when the water in Fuping County is so high and the fields are so high? It's such a waste of manpower and money, and it's so fruitless." "Yes, that's what I mean." Private Advisor Zhang could not help but chimed in. "According to Lord Wei, fixing the road will destroy the fields. If we have to bury pipes and divert water through the fields will be destroyed before the water comes. Wouldn't the people still lose their food?" Magistrate Liao took a sip of his tea and said, "Private Advisor Zhang, Lord Wei is a newcomer who has just been appointed. We can understand that he wants to achieve good results. However, understanding is one thing, allowing it is another. You don't have to be anxious. If anything happens, you can explain it slowly. This will prevent the officials in the provincial capital from misunderstanding you." "I'm worried about the people." Private Advisor Zhang put on a pained expression and said emotionally, "After fixing the road, the people in Fuping County can still get relief food from the provincial capital even if they don't have any food. Burying pipes and diverting water is just a waste of money. What effect will it have?" Hellion Vivian sneered. "Private Advisor Zhang hasn't seen whether it's effective or not. How can you come to a conclusion?" Magistrate Liao waved his hand. "Lord Wei, let's stop arguing. Let's go to the fields and have a look. We can let the people from the provincial capital be our witnesses. This Wei guy, if I don't slap him in the face, he won't be convinced."
He knew Fuping County very well.
No matter how the water in the river flowed, it would never flow to the fields on high ground. "Let's listen to Lord Liao and have a look at the fields." The official from the provincial capital spoke. He was still very kind to the people. "Let's follow along. We can explain to Lord Wei when the time comes." When the crowd heard this, they burst into laughter. They looked at Hellion Vivian with obvious mockery. The farmers didn't know who to listen to. They only vaguely felt that they shouldn't have come to find Sir Wei. However, now that things had come to this, there was no room for them to regret. They braced themselves and followed the group of officials to the fields. Magistrate Liao said that it was a field, but intentionally or unintentionally, he led the people to the riverside. He wanted to show the officials in the provincial capital how low the terrain was. The officials said casually as they walked, "Lord Wei, sometimes you need to use your brain. How can the water flow to the fields when the river is so low?" Hellion Vivian's thin lips curled into a mocking smile. Before she could say anything, the sound of water flowing could be heard not far away. It was accompanied by the cheers of a few farmers. It caused quite a commotion. "Water. There's water." The officials paused and looked toward the source of the sound. They saw a handsome and indifferent figure standing in the vast sky. He was tall, and his long robe was slightly fluttering. He looked like a god from ancient times. His slender hands were covered with pure black gloves. His thin lips were curled into a faint smile. There was a cold light in his deep eyes. It was difficult to ignore the oppressive aura he exuded. Even if he was standing in a crowd, he would be recognized at first glance. Hellion Vivian was stunned for a moment. Then, her lips curled into a smile. His Highness has been missing since this morning. He was waiting here. Chapter 477. What's going on? The officials asked in confusion. The servant ran back and forth, his eyes filled with disbelief. My lords, please go and take a look. There's water over there. There's water? Everyone knew that Fuping County lacked water the most. There's water in the fields? Where did it come from? The officials walked over doubtfully, only to see a bamboo pipe with a steady flow of water. The other end of the bamboo pipe seemed to be connected to the river at the lowest point of the terrain.
How could this be?
Everyone's faces were filled with unguarded astonishment. The few farmers who followed him couldn't believe what they were seeing. Their eyes were wet with excitement. Where did the water come from? Happiness came so suddenly that the villagers were trembling. It's Private Advisor Long, who serves Lord Wei. Someone shouted. He asked someone to bury the pipe and finally attracted the water from the river. Private Advisor Long, who serves Lord Wei? Isn't that Lord Wei's idea? The crowd turned around and looked at Hellion Vivian. Some were impressed, some were stunned, and some were embarrassed. The embarrassed one was Magistrate Liao's old face. He came to the fields with the intention of humiliating Wei. But the result? He actually let him be in the limelight just like that. He was the one who was embarrassed. When he met the gazes of his colleagues, Magistrate Liao wished he could find a hole and bury himself in it. He only wanted to leave as soon as possible. However, there was no such thing as a free lunch in the world, especially in His Highness's territory. How could they run away after bullying his people? They should ask if he was willing to do so. An eye for an eye had always been His Highness's style. The elders in the capital city were most afraid of his methods. The people in the provincial capital were not aware of Baligaju's identity. If they knew that he was here, they would not interfere in Fuping County's affairs no matter how much benefits Magistrate Liao offered them. There are too many people here. Let's not let these unruly people hurt you, my lords. Let's go back. Old Master Yen immediately jumped out when he saw the situation. He wanted to help Magistrate Liao out of the situation. Unexpectedly, as soon as he spoke, he heard an angry roar with a local accent. We became unruly because of you, you shameless bastard.
You?
Where did you come from? I don't even know you. Don't slander me. Old Master, Yen shouted. Old Man Lu couldn't take it anymore. He threw away the hoe in his hand. Yen, for so many years, you colluded with Magistrate Liao and did so many dirty things behind our backs. You wanted to make money, so you encouraged us to build roads. Many roads in Fuping County, big and small, had been repaired in just 3 years, but our lives were getting worse and worse. Putting aside the fact that you can do whatever you want in Fuping County, if you take a fancy to a girl, we have to send her to your residence. Otherwise, our whole family will not be at peace. Do you think that there is no law in this world? Old Master Yen looked at the gazes that were directed at him from all directions. He suddenly felt as if there was a knife on his back. He couldn't help but take a step back. He stuck out his big belly and pointed at Old Man Lu in warning. Don't talk nonsense. I marry someone willingly. How can you not recognize me after accepting the money? You have accepted the monetary gift, but now you are saying that I will cause your whole family to be at peace. You took the money and did something immoral. Sirs, you have to help me. Old Man Lu didn't expect the other party to be so thick-skinned. When he heard the words monetary gift, he was so angry that his eyes turned red. Our family doesn't want your money at all. Do you think you are buying livestock? One tael? Was this a betrothal gift? This was simply a humiliation. The few officials present had different expressions on their faces. Some of them thought that this old master, Yen, was too incompetent. If he really took a fancy to someone, he could have just given them more money. Why did he have to make things so ugly? Old Master Yen explained, "Isn't it because you think it's too little? That's fine, I'll make it up to you. Why do you have to bite me? Old Man Lu, let me tell you, I'm not a pushover. I won't let you accuse me like this." You. Old Man Lu was so angry that his face turned green. Old Master Yen was still pretending to be righteous and said, "Some people have been poor for too long. Not only did I help them, but they also want to take advantage of me. I can understand that, and I don't want to argue with these people. However, they're slandering me everywhere. Old Man Lu, you have to be responsible for your words."
Bang.
Before Old Master Yen could finish his words, Hellion Vivian, who had been silent all this while, raised her leg and kicked Old Master Yan's chest fiercely. After the first kick was not enough, she gave him a second kick. Old Master Yen was still puffing out his chest and pretending to be rich. After being kicked, he curled up into a ball in pain. All the officials were shocked by Hellion Vivian's sudden action. They did not expect Hellion Vivian to take action. Magistrate Liao, in particular, flew into a rage instantly. He shouted at Hellion Vivian, "Lord Wei, what are you doing? Do you know who you're hitting? You're hitting the person who can help Fuping County out of poverty the most." The person who can help Fuping County out of poverty? Hellion Vivian looked at Magistrate Liao with a mocking gaze. She slowly grabbed Old Master Yan's collar and said, "I've seen many despicable people, but this is the first time I've seen someone as despicable as him. He only gave me 1 tael of silver and said that he gave a betrothal gift. He even said that he helped this and that. Almost all the good girls in Fuping County are ruined by you. You're just a beast in human skin, yet you're still taking credit for it. Old Master Yen, you better give me an explanation now. What right do you have to harass the Lu family again, and let 3 big men hit a girl?" Old Master Yen was already confused by Hellion Vivian's 2 kicks. He felt pain all over his body and looked at Magistrate Liao with blood at the corner of his mouth. Magistrate Liao wanted to help him out. Suddenly, someone among the crowd shouted, "We want Old Master Yen to give us an explanation. He knows how many despicable things he has done all these years." Old Master Yen was enraged by the crowd. He could not help but reveal his true nature. He was extremely arrogant. "I sleep with people and pay for them. What do I need to explain? I can't stand people like you. Whenever there's a problem, you'll find fault with my personal behavior. I don't kill people, nor did I commit arson. I'm just doing my business honestly. It's not a crime at all. Lord Wei, you better think about the consequences of kicking me like this." "Consequences?" Hellion Vivian smiled coldly. "Old Master Yen, are you threatening me? Old Master Yen, you have the guts to threaten me, an official of the Imperial Court, in front of all the officials from the provincial capital. Who gave you such courage?" Chapter 478. Magistrate Liao wished that he did not know Old Master Yen at all. However, everyone in Fuping County, including the villagers, knew that Magistrate Liao and Old Master Yen were in the same boat.
Who else could it be?
Of course, it's Magistrate Liao. If it wasn't for Magistrate Liao, how could he be so fearless? Officials and businessmen protect each other. In the end, the people are the ones who suffer. The villagers were getting more and more agitated as they spoke, especially a few old farmers. They looked at Old Master Yen and Magistrate Liao as if they were looking at their enemies. With a face full of anger, they rushed forward in large strides and surrounded the 2 people in the center, interrogating them for a long time. The Yamen runners who were in charge of rescuing Magistrate Liao were blocked by Xiong and could not enter the field. For a moment, the entire field was in chaos. Voices cursing Magistrate Liao and Old Master Yen could be heard everywhere. It was obvious who was the one who had truly aroused the anger of the people. This is totally unreasonable. The officials from the provincial capital also realized that Magistrate Liao had gone too far, and there was no way to clean up the mess. They could not help but feel conflicted with him. They thought that they could get some offerings in Fuping County. After all, the higher-ups of the Liao family were not to be underestimated. Who would have thought that this would happen? The people were looking at them as if they were watching a show. Every one of them was a person with a high status in the provincial capital. They had never been ridiculed like this before. This series of actions was simply insulting them. Helian Weiwei stood at the side and watched this farce. The corners of her mouth had long been curled into a smile. When she glanced sideways, she saw the man's thin lips curling up mischievously, with a meaningful black-bellied flavor. Handsome is handsome, but too dangerous. How did you come up with this idea? Helian Vivian lowered her voice and whispered to her private advisor. Bailey Jia Ju glanced at her. If it were not for the occasion, he would have pulled her into his arms and rubbed her fluffy head. He was very fond of this little thing who came over to talk to him like this. Baligaju breathed gently in her ear, deliberately teasing her. When you were begging for mercy on the bed, I always had to think of something to distract myself. Otherwise, how could I control myself from wanting you? Helian Weiwei was choked by the man's words. Her ears were somewhat numb, and she lightly coughed a few times. She was very glad that she knew what was good for her from the start and took a fancy to a certain highness. Otherwise, she really would have died without leaving behind a corpse. Just look at these officials. Until now, they still didn't know who they had offended to end up like this. They were really stupid. Lord Wei, why are you still in a daze? Hurry up and pull these unruly people away. Magistrate Liao couldn't take it anymore and started yelling. His hair was messed up and he was in an extremely sorry state. He wanted to use his authority to suppress the people, but these people were simply crazy. The moment he opened his mouth, they would choke him back with words. They pointed at him and scolded him. He couldn't suppress them no matter how hard he tried. Helian Vivian's voice was calm. Magistrate Liao, it's better for you to answer the questions asked by the people properly. I'm not of much use anyway. The more the officials from the provincial capital looked at them, the more they felt embarrassed. Now that they heard Helian Vivian's words, they simply flicked their sleeves and walked back. When they were leaving, they did not forget to yell at the Yamen runners in a low voice, "Remember to bring your lord to the Yamen. This is too much." Yes, yes. The Yamen runners hurriedly responded. When Magistrate Liao saw the situation, he knew that he had to make a decision. He turned around and glared at Old Master Yen fiercely. Look at what you've done. Lord Liao, I don't know how things turned out like this. These unruly people are simply courting death. How dare they make such a scene? Old Master Yen was used to calling the shots in Fuping County. His first reaction was to get angry. He thought that when he left this field, he would definitely find all the people who scolded him today and teach them a lesson. He did not listen to Magistrate Liao's words and did not see that the officials from the provincial capital had already left. Magistrate Liao had never thought that Old Master Yen was stupid before. Now, other than the word stupid, he really could not think of another word to describe him. A huge sense of regret welled up in his heart. Why did he have to deal with such a person? Now, he had dragged him down and made him lose face in front of the officials from the provincial capital. It would take him a lot of effort to repair it in the future. How could an official be scolded by the people? This was simply a joke. He did not know how he would be laughed at in the capital in the future. This incident would probably be a shadow for him for the rest of his life. He must find a way to get rid of this. When he thought of this, Magistrate Liao shouted loudly, "Guards, take Old Master Yen away."
Lord Liao.
Old Master Yen was stunned, as if he could not believe what he heard. He stared blankly at Magistrate Liao, who gave the order. He only reacted when a Yamen runner came over and held his back. He shouted at Magistrate Liao, "Lord Liao, you can't do this. We are in the same boat, Lord Liao." Magistrate Liao was not in the mood to care about what he said now. Since he could not suppress him, He might as well pretend that he did not hear it. Take him away. Magistrate Liao's hair and clothes were messy. He did not look like a magistrate at all. He could not even muster up any strength. If it were not for his pair of eyes that were too vicious, the people would have forgotten his identity. Beligaju was standing beside him. His voice was neither fast nor slow. Lord Liao, didn't you hear what old Master Yan said? He said that you are in the same boat. If you are dragged away by the Yamen runners, Lord Liao, are you putting righteousness before family? Magistrate Liao was already in a bad mood. Now that he heard such words, he was so angry that his eyes turned red. He patted his chest breathlessly, but he could not do anything in front of the crowd. He could only clench his teeth and say, "Let's go." The Yamen runners hurriedly protected him. They reached out and pushed away the villagers who kept swarming toward them. They fled out of the fields. It was completely different from when they were facing Magistrate Liao. When the people looked at Hellion Vivian, their eyes were full of admiration. Lord Wei, how did you do it? You are really a god. You can actually draw the water from the river and use it to irrigate the fields. Hellion Vivian smiled gently. I just added a few small devices. What devices are they? They're so amazing. Hellion Vivian hummed. It is a little complicated to explain. If you want to know, you can ask the master who made the devices. They will tell you. With such a device, Fuping County will never have to worry about drought in the future. Endless praises echoed in the air above the fields. This was Hellion Vivian's first battle in the officialdom since she came to Fuping County. She fought it beautifully. However, this was just the beginning. Chapter 479. The situation in Fuping County had obviously changed. Magistrate Liao did not know when it started, but he was already deeply involved in this storm when he finally realized what was going on. The officials who once supported the road construction were like headless flies. They sat in the yamen and tried their best to find out what was going on in the provincial capital, trying to find a breakthrough. Among them, Private Advisor Zhang was the most active.
He was the closest to old Master Yan.
Now that old Master Yan was in trouble, he would definitely be involved. Moreover, the news had spread among the people that he had been covering for old Master Yan all these years as a private advisor in the yamen. He was no different from a pimp. Lord Liao, we have to think of a way. We can't just sit here and wait for our doom. Private Advisor Zhang wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. There are many people outside the yamen. They are forcing us to give them an explanation now. Fortunately, the officials from the provincial capital still remember our past relationship and did not submit a report to the higher-ups. If the higher-ups know about this, we will be in trouble. Magistrate Liao had already thought of the situation that Private Advisor Zhang mentioned, but it was one thing to think about it and another to turn it around. We have to shut the Liu family up first, then there will be a turn for the better. Magistrate Liao instructed Private Advisor Zhang in a low voice. This case is easy. Don't panic. Don't forget that the officials from the provincial capital are here to stabilize the situation for us. If they don't say anything, who dares to react to it? Even if the news really reaches the capital, there is still that person in charge. That way person has no say in the provincial capital, let alone in the capital. He is not even worth a fart. He thinks he is so great just because he made some achievements, and now he wants to go against us?
Ha!
Magistrate Liao sneered with a sinister look on his face. The situation in the officialdom is not something that can be changed just by the people making a fuss. What's next is the most important part. Go and get some money. No matter how much you have to spend, you have to force the Liu family to change their mouths. As long as their words are no longer valid, that way family will have to suffer a severe fall as well. Yes, I'll get it done right away. Private Advisor Zhang nodded his head vigorously, but before he could take a step forward, a voice rang out. Master Liao walked in angrily, with a look of satisfaction on his face. Father, not only did that Wei fellow capture my people, he even tortured all of them in private. Now that I can't contact them, You must help me find them. Torture in private? Magistrate Liao's eyes flickered as he came up with a plan. You'll go to court with me later. We'll complain about Wei in front of the provincial officials. Young Master Liao was a little dumb and could not wrap his head around it. Will this work? Father, wouldn't it be better to just ask him to release them and then dismiss him from his position? How many times have I said it? That is an official appointed by the imperial court. No matter how much power your father has, I can't just dismiss anyone as I please. Magistrate Liao was infuriated by his son, who only knew how to eat, drink, and play all day long. I'll ask Private Advisor Zhang to teach you what to say in the imperial court later. He has plenty of ways to deal with this kind of thing. All right. Young Master Liao's face turned gloomy after being scolded. It was not so troublesome in the past. He would kill anyone who offended him directly. What was the point of going to the imperial court? How frustrating. Private Advisor Zhang was a man of many thoughts. He could see through Master Liao's mind at a glance. Young Master, don't underestimate this complaint of yours. The Lord has already said that the officials in the provincial capital are all well prepared. If it weren't for the chaos, not only would your complaint be able to get rid of that Wei guy, it might even send him to prison and never let him out for the rest of his life. Really? Young Master Liao's dejected expression changed. His eyes lit up all of a sudden. Private Advisor Zhang did not know that young Master Liao had sent people to kill Hellion Vivian. He only heard young Master Liao's side of the story. He wanted to kill Hellion Vivian so badly, but he did not ask for more details. He said with certainty, with the Lord around, we can also turn the innocent into a criminal. What Private Advisor Zhang said was not wrong. After all, the provincial officials did not want to return empty-handed. As for Hellion Vivian's behavior, they could not stand it. They were originally here to enjoy life, but who knew that they would be humiliated in front of so many people? Who would have thought that they would lose face in front of so many people? No one would be happy about it. Moreover, with their relationship with Magistrate Liao, they already had their own plans for what they should do next. However, at this moment, the lost governor of 3 provinces, Lord Chen, finally arrived at the boundary of Fuping County. His servant kept apologizing to him along the way. Lord Chen was very anxious, but he did not show it on his face. He was afraid that something bad would happen, so he went to the local garrison camp before he came and showed the letter in his hand to one of the Emperor Emeritus's trusted aides. When the trusted aide received the letter, his expression changed, but he also gave him a confirmation that Highness has indeed come to our province. This is also the Emperor Emeritus's intention. With just a few words, Lord Chen could tell that there was a change in the imperial court. That Highness's methods had always been dreadful. It was obvious why he came to Fuping County this time. He was attacking from the outside. His goal was not as simple as Fuping County. It was obvious that he wanted to eliminate the hidden forces of the entire province in one move. Lord Chen shuddered. He looked at the Fuping Yamen in front of him. When he thought of the officials who came to Fuping County for inspection, including his former subordinates, he could only feel a chill running down his spine. He hoped that they could recognize Liangzi from beside His Highness and not cross the line. Achoo! Chun Liang, who was following beside Hellion Vivian, sneezed loudly. He looked at his boss with grievance. Why? Why didn't you let me go to the field with you? I heard from De Xiong that you're very cool. He felt relieved just hearing about it, let alone seeing it on the spot. What exactly did he miss? Hellion Vivian sipped her tea calmly. Your face is too eye-catching. The eye-catching one is the royal family. Chun Liang muttered softly. He glanced at the tall figure who was giving orders to the shadow guards and subconsciously stood up straight. Hellion Vivian smiled. You don't have to be envious. When old Master Yan's interrogation starts at noon, you'll definitely be useful. Really? Chun Liang was excited. He looked at himself in the bronze mirror. Then I'll go dress up first. Hellion Vivian was speechless. The little 7th prince took a bite of a meat bun and chewed it a few times. Third sister-in-law. Why are your subordinates so dull? Helly and Vivian sighed. Maybe it's because they're born in a good family. Can they be better than third brother? The little seventh prince stood up shakily and put one hand on Helly and Vivian. Third brother has always been a little. Chapter 480. Helly and Vivian pinched his cheeks and felt the same way. Your third brother is an anomaly. Bailey Jiaju was handsome from head to toe. He glanced back and swept a glance at the two people behind him. His tone was indifferent. If I hear another word about this highness, you know what the consequences will be. The adult and child immediately tensed up. He heard it. How can he hear it like that? Third brother is too abnormal. He is indeed a little. The shadow guard's mouth twitched. The conversation between the little master and the princess was too loud. It was so loud. There was no reason for him not to hear it. Were they not afraid of angering the little master? The shadow guard lowered his eyes and said, Your Highness, do we need to remind the princess? Upon hearing this, Beligaju looked at the shadow guard coldly. Remind what?
No, no.
The shadow guard instinctively felt the displeasure from the man and did not dare to say anything more. He also understood the importance of the princess in the little master's heart, so he bowed respectfully. Beligaju retracted his gaze and walked past the shadow guard. His eyes were like a sea of stars as he looked down at Helly and Vivian. He reached out a hand and his voice was as deep as a fine musical instrument, easily bewitching those who heard it. Let's go, my lord. Let's play the second game. Helly and Vivian saw the faint smile at the corner of his mouth and knew that someone was going to be unlucky again. She was more than willing to cooperate with the little master. She placed her hand in his palm, and with a tug, their fingers interlocked. The little seventh prince followed behind the two of them with a meat bun in his mouth. He looked like a tiger. The people in the yamen did not know that there was a child here. The yamen runners only found it strange and kept looking behind them. The interrogation officially began. This was probably the biggest case in Fuping County in the past 100 years. Not only were all the officials from various counties present, but there were also 4 officials from the provincial capital sitting on either side of Helly and Vivian. How much pressure did they have to withstand to be able to interrogate the case? However, Wei Wei's appearance was calm and unruffled, not the slightest bit different from her usual self. She glanced at Private Advisor Long, who was standing beside her. Private Advisor Long exuded an aura that was cultivated from years of being in the officialdom. His bearing made him look more like a high-ranking official than the officials from the 4 provincial capitals. Private Advisor Zhang held a grudge against Beligaju for taking over his position. He glared fiercely at Beligaju and spat in his heart. He would like to see how this gigolo could still be so mighty when that Wei guy fell from power. Beligaju was Helly and Vivian's private advisor. Naturally, she had to bring him with her, especially when she was investigating a case. Bring out the criminal, Yenda Zhao. His voice was very faint and low, but what was strange was that everyone could hear his words. It was as if his voice was right next to their ears, bringing with it a strong sense of oppression. This was one of the reasons why Private Advisor Zhang disliked him the most. They were both private advisors, but this person stood higher than them. Even when the higher-ups came, they had never seen him show any other expression. What was there to be arrogant about? Private Advisor Zhang snorted coldly. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth again. He stood beside Beligaju and gave him pointers like a senior. Xiaolong, there are so many officials here. As private advisors, we should speak less and let them do as they see fit. You're new here, so you probably don't understand that there are ways to investigate a case. You can't be as rash as the officials. Beligaju glanced at him indifferently. Private Advisor Zhang saw that he had reacted, so he spoke more enthusiastically. We're a family. You can ask me if there's anything you don't understand. You can only speak after asking me. That way, you'll make fewer mistakes. Private Advisor Zhang was still nagging when Beligaju opened his mouth slowly. His tone was neither cold nor warm. He spoke slowly as if he did not care about Private Advisor Zhang at all.
Who are you?
You? Private Advisor Zhang did not expect to receive such an answer. His fingers were trembling as he stared at Beligaju with his eyes wide open.
Puffed.
Hellion Vivian could not help but laugh out loud. She could clearly see that Private Advisor Zhang's face was frozen. He was so angry but could not vent his anger. He was so stupid. However, Bailey Jiaju's expression remained indifferent as he stared straight at the Yamen Hall in front of him. His pair of long and narrow eyes did not have the slightest ripple, as if the person who said those words just now was not him. Hellion Vivian coughed softly and put on a serious expression. She saw that old Master Yen was brought up by 2 Yamen runners. He did not kneel down. Because he had the title of Jinshi, he stood there swaggering. His eyes met Hellion Vivian's, and he held his round belly. Before Hellion Vivian could ask, he began to shout loudly, "Your Excellency, I've been wronged." Hellion Vivian laughed mockingly. "You?
Wronged?
Your Excellency, I know that you have misunderstood me." Old Master Yen said with a smile, "I don't blame you. After all, I've reached my current position. It's inevitable that there will be many rumors and slanders. I've never expected anyone to be grateful for what I do. I didn't expect that those despicable people would have the opportunity to slander me. But then again, Your Excellency is biased against me. I can slowly prove it to you. Isn't it a little unfair to bring this matter to the imperial court?" Hellion Weiwei's eyes were slightly cold as she looked at him, without saying anything. Chun Liang and the little 7th prince stood side by side in the crowd. The former scolded fiercely, "I, as your young master, have lived for so many years, but I have never seen such a shameless person like that Yen guy. He was the one who kidnapped the girl, and now he is saying it out loud, as if he is some great hero. We shouldn't waste our breath on such a person. We should just kill him with our status." Little 7th Prince chewed on a meat bun. His handsome face was very gloomy. Those who hurt the people will definitely get what they deserve. Third brother has plenty of ways to shut him up. We can kill him without using our status.
Yes.
Chun Liang nodded and reached out to massage the little one's shoulders. He said very sensibly, "Young Uncle Master is wise." Little 7th Prince turned his head and said fiercely, "You're not bad." It was rare to be praised by young Uncle Master. Chun Liang was so touched that he was about to cry. When he was in the White Academy, he was so afraid of young Uncle Master that he took a detour. Although he was young, his killing power was great. All the guards here combined were not enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. Masters? The servant who stood on tiptoe and finally saw his young master. He tugged at Lord Chen's sleeve and pointed at the crowd. I found young master." Lord Chen looked in the direction of his finger. His eyes were already unable to calm down. When he saw little bald head standing beside his beloved son, he immediately became restless. Even this little ancestor was here. Chapter 481. In the War Dragon Empire, from the retired emperor to eunuch's son, everyone doted on the little 7th prince. When he came out of the capital to take up his post, he heard from the people in the palace that the retired emperor was worried about the little 7th prince. He wanted to make more food for the little 7th prince so that the little 7th prince would not harm the red-crowned cranes in the palace. Although the retired emperor said so, everyone could hear the affection in his words. If something were to happen to the little 7th prince, who was under his jurisdiction, he would not hesitate. He would not be able to kill him even if he had 100 heads. Fortunately, his stupid son was enlightened this time. It seemed that he was getting along well with the little 7th prince. Lord Chen tried to calm himself down. In just half a day, his heart felt like it was on a roller coaster, going up and down countless times. "My lord, shall we go now?" The servant felt that it was great to see his young master again. The governor of 3 provinces, Lord Chen, pulled him back. Wait a while more. Wait. The servant could not understand his lord's intention. Lord Chen had been in the bureaucracy for a long time. Now that his beloved son was arranged to be in the audience for the hearing, it was obvious that His Highness did not want to reveal his identity yet. If he went out now, he might be recognized. If he really ruined His Highness's plan, his position as the governor of 3 provinces would come to an end. So let's wait a while more, he told himself that, but he could not relax. He listened to the sounds inside, and his palms were sweating. Private Advisor Zhang said recklessly, Lady Wei, I think that this matter needs to be investigated from many aspects. For example, who can prove that Father Liu is not lying? Hearing this, Helian Wei curled her lips into a smile. She played with the jade pendant on her waist and called out in a leisurely tone. Private Advisor Long, Bailey Jiaju, did not say a word. He went forward and kicked Private Advisor Zhang between his legs with precision. A cracking sound was heard. Private Advisor Zhang fell to his knees on the ground. He looked like he was in pain. This is simply nonsense. Magistrate Liao immediately stood up and looked at Helian Vivian angrily. Lord Wei, what do you think the imperial court is? How can you casually ask your private advisor to beat someone up? Beligija looked back at him and said calmly, Lord Liao, before asking this question, you should ask Private Advisor Zhang if he knows the rules of the imperial court. Even the judge hasn't spoken. What right does he have to speak? Magistrate Liao choked on his words and felt a pain in his chest. He looked at Private Advisor Zhang, who was in a mess on the ground, and became even angrier. Even so, you can't hit him. Is this how you act as a private advisor?
Lord Liao.
Helian Vivian interrupted him. It was my idea to hit Private Advisor Zhang. Sometimes I have to teach the people around me a lesson when they don't know the rules. Lord Liao shouldn't have any objections to me teaching my people a lesson, right? After hearing Helian Vivian's words, the people remembered that Private Advisor Zhang was the private advisor of Fupingyamen. Didn't that make him a subordinate of the county magistrate? It was unreasonable for the county magistrate to teach his subordinates a lesson. The 4 officials from the provincial capital sitting on the seats looked at each other. They coughed softly and said coldly, Lord Wei, do you want us to stand aside and watch you teach your subordinates a lesson? Governor Chen, who was standing at the periphery, recognized the voices of his former subordinates. He could not help but curse in a low voice. He was really going to be killed by these idiots. Why did they have the guts to interfere? Of course not. Helian Vivian smiled and ordered the Yamen runners at the side, help Private Advisor Zhang out. Let him think about what he did wrong. The manservants were stunned. This was the first time that Private Advisor Zhang was chased out of the imperial court in such a sorry state. After all, he had never lost in all these years. When he was investigating a case, he could protect whoever he wanted. With this, he received a lot of money. His silver tongue could even turn black into white. Now, before the court started, he was dragged out. And he was beaten up so badly, the manservants felt that something was wrong no matter how they thought about it. At this moment, Magistrate Liao had already realized what was going on. His eyes looked like they could spit fire at any time. This was their purpose. From the beginning, they wanted to drag Private Advisor Zhang out and force him to defend Yan Dazhao in person. He had underestimated this private advisor who followed Magistrate Wei around. He was good at using tricks. However, just based on this point alone, what could they do to them? How naive. Magistrate Liao smiled coldly and said, although Private Advisor Zhang broke the rules, Lord Wei, regarding the last question that Private Advisor Zhang asked, shouldn't you answer it directly? Who can be sure that the fellow with the surname Liu is not lying? As far as I know, that person has been looking at Yan Dazhao with hostility. No matter how little one tael of silver is, it's still silver. Since old Liu has accepted the money, it's reasonable that Yan Dazhao wants to marry his daughter. Moreover, Lord Wei hasn't understood the situation clearly. It's not right to convict Yan Dazhao like this. Helian Wei glanced at Magistrate Liao as she twirled the ring on her little finger. Lord Liao really treats Yan Dazhao as his own family member to say such words. I just want to remind Lord Wei, so that he won't misjudge the case and fall into trouble. Since they were facing each other directly, Magistrate Liao did not care about anything else. He turned around and said to the officials from the provincial capital, I heard that other than the Liu family, 2 other families also said that Yan Dazhao's style was problematic. Later on, they felt guilty for spreading rumors about Yan Dazhao behind his back. So, they came to the Yamen and wanted to testify for Yan Dazhao personally. Hearing this, Wei Wei's shapely eyebrows creased. Magistrate Liao smiled when he saw her expression. He looked very confident. Haha, it's too late to be anxious now. He would like to see how this person with the surname Wei would handle being pushed by everyone later. The officials from the provincial capital were cooperative. Since there are other witnesses, summon them for questioning.
Yes.
The Yamen runner bowed his head respectfully and soon brought the 2 families in. Magistrate Liao was very amiable. You don't have to be afraid. Just say what you want to say. The 2 families did not dare to raise their heads. They only kneeled on the ground and did not look at Hellion Vivian's eyes. They said in a cowardly voice, We misunderstood old Master Yen. Our family didn't have a harvest, and we had a hard time. Old Master Yen pitied us, so he wanted to marry Xiao Ju and Xiao Cui. Firstly, he really likes them. Secondly, he can give us some relief. Chapter 482. That's not what they said before. Chun Liang clenched his fists in the crowd. He really didn't understand. They were the ones who found the boss and asked for redress. Now, they were the ones who put the boss in a stalemate. Didn't they know that the whole case would be overturned and the boss would be stepped on by that Liao guy? Little 7th Prince's handsome face became unprecedentedly serious. He narrowed his eyes as if he was going to start a fight if there was any change in the situation. The sudden reversal of the confession caused the entire interrogation scene to fall into a discussion. 2 out of the 3 families said that they had wronged old Master Yen. If that's the case, the possibility of old man Lu lying is very high. Who knows? If you ask me, this kind of thing takes 2 hands to clap. Look at that girl surnamed Lu. She's so seductive at such a young age. Who knows? She might have taken the initiative to approach him. When old Master Yen took their grain, old man Lu didn't have such a big reaction. Now that the harvest is not good, he's making such a fuss. He's really scheming. Sarcasm swept toward the father and daughter of the Lu family like a tidal wave. Lu Yin's eyes turned red. Her whole body trembled, and she felt a chill from the bottom of her heart. Could it be that in people's eyes it would always be like this? She still couldn't forget how she had risked her life to escape the first time she was dragged to the Yen Manor. Even now, she still had nightmares at night about that scene. If Lord Wei and Private Advisor Long hadn't appeared, her life would have been ruined. She was the victim. Why didn't they punish that heinous man when something like this happened? Why did they have to find fault with the woman? Was this the so-called fairness and loyalty? She would rather not. For the first time, Lu Rin felt powerless. Just when she was about to give up, a lazy and clear voice came to her ears. Fellow villagers, you speak so harshly. Aren't you afraid that one day, when your daughter is bullied, she will also be pointed at and scolded by others? Hellion Vivian's words were like a silencer in the crowd. In just a moment, all the gossiping people stopped talking. They looked at each other and quickly moved away. Then, he quickly moved away with an awkward expression on his face. There were also some people who refused to change their nature. If I had a daughter like her, I would strangle her to death the moment she was born, so that she wouldn't embarrass me in the future. Then this official truly feels sorry for your daughter. Hellion Vivian looked at the man and said, Even a beast knows that even a vicious tiger won't eat its own cubs. You, on the other hand, are good. Your daughter is being bullied. It's fine if you don't help prevent her anger, but you still want to sprinkle salt on her wound. Well done. Hearing Hellion Vivian's words, all the citizens looked at that person. The old man's face turned red as he braced himself and said, That's because she did something that offended the clan. This official knows very well what kind of woman Luine is. The case hasn't been settled yet, but this fellow from the same village is already spouting nonsense. Hellion Vivian sneered. What's your motives? Magistrate Liao was worried that the people who bribed the people would be found out, so he stopped Hellion Vivian in time. Lord Wei, you're thinking too much. This fellow from the same village is just expressing his opinion, and you're taking it so seriously. However, you don't know that some people look honest on the surface, but they're actually doing some shady things behind the scenes. As he spoke, Magistrate Liao looked at Yan Dazhao. Yan Dazhao, let me ask you. Has Lu Yin ever expressed anything to you in private? Every time she comes to the Yen Manor with her father to deliver food, she wears very eye-catching clothes, and she always looks at me. Old Master, Yen let out a long sigh. Forget it. I've seen a lot of girls like her who still pretend to be chaste even after being a whore. I just don't want to lower myself to her level. You're lying. Lu Yin couldn't hold it in any longer. She rushed towards Old Master Yen like a madwoman, wanting to perish together with the most disgusting scum in the world. However, before she could get close to Old Master Yen, a yamen runner stopped her. Yan Dazhao was scared out of his wits. He was really worried that he would be scratched by her, so he scolded coldly, "Crazy woman." Then, he raised his head and looked at the hearing officials. "My lords, you have to give me justice. Now, someone has come out to testify that I've been wronged, but Lord Wei only believes this woman's words." Haha, I don't know if he's bewitched. Yan Dazhao's meaning was very obvious. He was saying that there was something between Hellion Vivian and Lu Yin. Yan Dazhao. Lu Yin knew how despicable this man was, but she never thought that he would be despicable to this extent. Lord Wei only wanted to help her clear her name, but he actually led others to think that there was something going on between her and Lord Wei. Even though Lu Yin didn't have much education, she knew that once this matter was settled, she could just die to prove her sincerity, but Lord Wei's future would be ruined. Could it be that these provincial officials were all blind? The one who had a loophole in his words was Yan Dazhao. Why didn't they stop him and let him slander Lord Wei? Yan Dazhao turned around and glanced at Lu Yin. His eyes were filled with complacency and disdain. Although this little girl has expressed her interest to me, but since Lord Wei likes her, then this Yen can just give her to Lord Wei. Why must Lord Wei keep making things difficult for this Yen? You. After all, Lu Yin was still young. Moreover, anyone would be angry if they were accused like this, so Lu Yin was so angry that she felt dizzy. Magistrate Liao looked at this scene with satisfaction. He sat in his seat and leisurely drank his tea. The other officials from the provincial capital didn't say anything either. They just let Yan Dazhao defend himself in the imperial court. Their thoughts were actually very simple. Was there a need to investigate this case? It was just a farm girl who was wronged and didn't want to be Yan Dazhao's concubine. When the time comes, they could just ask Yan Dazhao to give her more money, and everything would be solved. Why did this Wei guy have to make such a big fuss? Why didn't he consider his own status? They never liked subordinates who didn't know the rules. They could use this opportunity to give him a warning so that he wouldn't always stick his head out. He thought that he had some skills, but he was still controlled by Magistrate Liao. Now that this Wei guy has fallen, there might be hope for the road construction project. They couldn't come here for nothing, so they had to do something to show the governor. However, Governor Chen, who was standing in the crowd, was extremely anxious. Chapter 483. Governor Chen wanted to go out, but he was afraid that it was not the right time. If he did not go out, he would have to let that bunch of idiots die. Governor Chen massaged his throbbing temples and subconsciously looked at Her Highness's face. He felt a chill from the bottom of his heart as soon as he saw it. At that moment, he knew that he would not be able to protect that old subordinate of his. It was very likely that even he, the governor of 3 provinces, would be implicated in the main hall. Hellion Vivian loosened her clenched fists and sneered at old Master Yen Dazhao. Your ability to reverse right and wrong is not bad. As she spoke, she looked straight ahead with her eyes burning like torches. Since everyone is so confused as to why I insist on interfering in Miss Luyan's matter, then I will tell everyone the cause and effect. On the first day I took office in Fuping County, I saw 2 big men dragging a young lady into the Yen Manor. The young lady was crying her heart out, but no one dared to stop them. I would like to ask, if Miss Luyan had really expressed her feelings for old Master Yen, why didn't she enter the Yen Manor happily? Why would she be dragged in like this? Everyone fell into deep thought after hearing this. That was because she stole the silver from the Yen Manor. That was why I sent someone to catch her. Yen Dazhao explained anxiously. Hellion Vivian looked at him mockingly. Yen Dazhao, if you really married a concubine who was in love with you, would that concubine steal your silver? According to you, Yen Dazhao, aren't you very generous to people? Anyway, she's just a money grubber. Yen Dazhao curled his lips guiltily. Who knows? This fickle woman might have taken a fancy to some pretty boy and thought that the silver I gave her was not enough, so she wanted to get more money to spend with someone else. You, Yen Dazhao, why don't you just go and die? Lu Yin screamed at the top of her lungs. Almost everyone could see her pain. The commoners looked at each other, and their gazes towards Yen Dazhao were filled with suspicion and anger. Yen Dazhao, on the other hand, was very disapproving. He even took this opportunity to bite back at Lu Yin. My lady, you must control this crazy woman. She always keeps on harming me. I'm really worried that she will hurt me. Look at her. She even has the intention to kill me now. The officials from the provincial capital coughed a few times, but didn't say anything. They only reminded Magistrate Liao with their eyes, asking him to restrain Yen Dazhao. Magistrate Liao also knew that it was not a good thing to go overboard, so he wanted to ask Yen Dazhao to stop. However, at this moment, Hellion Weiwei smiled, but that smile did not reach her eyes. Yen Dazhao, you're really the most shameless person I've ever met, casually speaking without thinking and making up stories about other people. This official wants to see who gave you the guts to do so. I don't have the guts. Yen Dazhao glanced at Hellion Weiwei coldly. Lord Wei, have you forgotten? Someone has just proven that I was wrongly accused. How can Lord Wei still say that I believe him? Making up stories about other people? I think Lord Wei is the one with the problem. Hearing this, Lu Yin turned around and looked at the person who was kneeling on the ground. Xiao Cui, do you really want Lord Wei to take the blame for you? Back then, who was the one who begged Lord Wei to redress our grievances? Have you all forgotten? The person called Xiao Cui's shoulders trembled. She lowered her head even more, as if she didn't dare to speak at all. Chen Liangjin couldn't wait to go out immediately, but before he came, his boss told him to watch from the side. But now, did he really have to watch that group of bullshit officials frame his boss to the point where he couldn't explain himself? All right, Lord Wei, you don't have to think of ways to defend this person surnamed Lu anymore. If they really think that this official's betrothal gift is too little, this official will give them more. As he spoke, Yen Dazhao held his stomach and looked down at Lu Yin arrogantly. His tone was filled with disdain. Tell me, how much do you want? The deep sense of humiliation made Lu Yin bite her lips until they bled. Yen Dazhao's face was filled with more and more smiles. When he looked at that group of people, his eyes were filled with ridicule. A group of poor people still wanted to fight with him. He just had to give them some money to make them overturn their testimonies. Not to mention sleeping with 2 or 3 of their daughters. Is 50 taels enough? Yen Dazhao sneered. He raised his hand and counted out 2 banknotes and threw them at Lu Yin's face. Hellion Vivian suddenly narrowed her eyes. Her voice was extremely cold. Yen Dazhao, I am warning you. If you don't stop now, I will make sure that your entire family will be buried with you. Lord Wei, are you feeling sorry for me? Yan Dazhao laughed. Oh right, this official thought about it. Lord Wei's background is also not good. I am sure that you have never seen so much money before, right? Do you want this official to show you a few more banknotes? No need. Bailey Jiaju, who had not spoken a word since the beginning, opened his mouth slowly. He glanced at the people who were kneeling on the ground unhurriedly. Then he met Yan Dazhao's eyes and said, Lord Wei won't be interested in that little bit of money of yours. Yan Dazhao did not understand why he would feel so much pressure from an advisor. The feeling of being grabbed by the throat made his scalp numb. However, he had no choice but to continue with what he had said before. He said to Hellion Vivian without giving up, after saying so much, how can Lord Wei prove that you are not doing so much for Lu Yin because of personal feelings? Is it really good for a county magistrate to handle a case like this?
What Yan Dazhao said is right.
Magistrate Liao saw the time and said in a deep voice, Lord Wei, please put this case aside for the time being. It is the principle of avoiding relatives. We will see if you can still stay in Fuping County after the officials have finished their investigation. Hellion Vivian glanced sideways at Magistrate Liao. Her eyes were sharp. Lord Liao, the accused is Liao Dazhao, not me. Moreover, there is nothing between Lu Yin and me. We have only known each other for 2 days. How could there be any personal feelings between us? Without any evidence, you want to suspend my work? Have you thought about the consequences? Consequences? Magistrate Liao sneered. Lord Wei, you should be thinking about the consequences. Suspending your work is what the people want. Moreover, didn't someone say that their previous accusation was wrongly accusing Yan Dazhao? Lord Wei, be careful that you won't be able to clean up the mess if you continue to push your luck. My lord, Beligage's mouth seemed to be cold as he glanced at Magistrate Liao. His gaze was extremely cold. At that moment, Magistrate Liao felt that Private Advisor Long's back looked familiar. However, he could not remember where he had seen this person before. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.